If pop culture has taught us to love one thing, it's a renegade hero with dark powers. Everyone remembers classic characters like Ghost Rider or even Wolverine. We love this kind of storyline because it's easy to relate to someone who gets rejected but decides to prove their worth, no matter the cost. But what happens when your family drama involves being the biological son of the literal devil? That's where today's story comes in. Blue Exorcist. Think of a magical school, Harry Potter style, only full of blue flames, giant swords, and a massive dose of unresolved trauma. Here, hot-headed Rin decides that instead of losing it and taking over the world, he's going to become an exorcist just to kick his own dad's ass and avenge his foster father. And let me tell you, this anime delivers on all fronts. It's got insane fights, heavy dark secrets, and a Mr. Perfect brother who is actually way more complex than he looks. So today on the channel, Blue Exorcist, where family drama reaches completely apocalyptic proportions. A group of elderly priests is peacefully praying until blue flames decide to turn them all into holy barbecue, with the high priest getting possessed and screaming about demons to the night sky. We cut to the next morning, where we meet our useless and violent protagonist, Rin, who decides to punch a punk's face just because he was hurting pigeons. Coming home, Rin gets that classic chewing out from his adoptive father and priest, Shiro, for losing his job and getting into a fight again, while his little Mr. Perfect brother, Yukio, packs his bags for a prestigious academy, proving that parents always have a favorite. Pressured by capitalist society, Rin tries to get a gig at a supermarket. The manager gives him impossible tasks to see if he'll quit, but the kid is bizarrely strong. Being a walking disaster, he almost gets fired, but out of nowhere, he awakens the talent of a 5-star chef at a free sample stand and secures the job. Too bad the joy of being a productive member of society is short-lived. Trying to retrieve a girl's scarf, Rin notices the fabric is being pulled by a bizarre monkey. Like any sane person would do, he chases the creature through the store, destroying every shelf in the process and earning a termination in record time. The next day, that same pigeon-hating punk, Reiji, lures Rin into an alley, mocks his brother, and tries to brand our protagonist. What the idiot didn't expect was for Rin to activate his human lighter mode and release blue flames from his own body, scaring off the whole gang. The demon using Reiji's body as a rental reveals that Rin is the literal son of Satan and tries to drag him down to Gehenna. Before Rin can process the family trauma, Shiro shows up out of nowhere spitting Bible verses faster than Eminem, exorcises the demon, and pulls the kid back to the church before the rest of hell decides to show up. Running across rooftops to escape zombie dogs, Shiro throws a holy water bomb and drags Rin back to the monastery, which is already bathed in spiritual protection. Down in the basement, the old man hands the kid the Kutakata sword, explaining that the blade serves to seal his demonic powers, and that if he draws it, he can kiss his humanity goodbye forever. He also rubs it in his face that little Mr. Perfect Yukio was too weak in the womb to inherit the seed of evil. The demons finally breach security, so Shiro locks Rin in a safe room with an old flip phone and goes outside to exorcise the alley punk for the second time and destroy the King of Rot. But Rin escapes the room like a spoiled brat and plays the worst card possible, telling Shiro he isn't his real dad. The emotional damage is so deep that the old man's mental guard breaks, allowing Rin's true deadbeat dad, Satan, to possess his body. The Lord of Darkness forces the old man to rip off his own fingers, using the spurting blood to open the monstrous Gehenna gate. To save this ungrateful brat who is being sucked into hell, Shiro regains control for a split second and commits suicide with his own necklace.
That boy is my son, and I'm taking him back.
Seeing the crap he caused, Rin finally stops being a coward, draws his big, hard, demonic sword, and embraces his dark side. He grows pointy ears, a little devil tail, and blue flames, destroying the gate in an instant before crying over his adoptive father's corpse. The next day, in a rainy cemetery, Rin decides to use the phone and call the emergency contact. Immediately, he is surrounded by a group of suited goons led by Mephistopheles, a weirdo dressed in white. Mephisto offers the protagonist 3 wonderful options: be murdered, fight, and be murdered, or commit suicide. Ignoring all logic, Rin asks to join their group, swearing he's going to beat the crap out of Satan. Mephisto laughs at this absurd audacity like a maniac and takes the kid in, warning him that from now on, he will be a professional exorcist. Rin is waiting outside the church when a hot pink limo almost turns him into roadkill. Mephisto steps out of the flashy ride, but the real surprise is that Mr. Perfect brother, Yukio, is also inside. They travel in absolute style to True Cross Academy, a school full of rich kids where Yukio Yukio obviously takes the stage to give the nerd welcome speech. After a quick tour, Mephisto tosses Rin into the secret cram school for exorcists. The kid sits at his desk expecting some bizarre teacher, but the one who walks into the room to teach is none other than his own little brother. While Yukio tries to explain the class's sacred rituals, Rin, incapable of keeping his mouth shut for 2 minutes, starts interrupting and questioning the teacher's authority in front of everyone. Sick of this family humiliation, Yukio kicks the extras out of the room. In the middle of the heated argument, he manages to knock a vial of rotten animal blood onto the floor. The disgusting smell instantly attracts the neighborhood demons. But instead of focusing on the monsters, the two keep fighting over who's to blame for their dad kicking the bucket. Yukio reaches his limit, pulls out a literal gun, and points it right in his brother's face. Rin explodes with rage, screaming once and for all that he didn't kill the old man. After this brutal, intensive therapy session, the brothers finally work together to exterminate the demons that invaded the room. And to top the day off and ensure the protagonist's life is a constant hell, Rin discovers that his roommate for the rest of the school year will be none other than his armed and resentful brother. While Yukio tries to drag our useless protagonist to do exorcist errands, they arrive at a restricted shop where Rin is left outside like a mangy dog. Obviously, his mental capacity doesn't allow him to sit still, so he breaks into a magical garden and startles a blonde girl named Shiemi. It turns out the girl's legs are completely infected by a botanical demon, trapping her in an emotional wheelchair fueled by guilt since her grandmother was crushed by grapevines. Rin tries to play the cheap motivational psychologist, projecting his own daddy issues to convince the girl to get over the past. Yukio finally shows up to play doctor and heal Shiemi's legs, telling her to get out of the garden. But when she tries to leave the weeds, the local demon decides it's not going to lose its favorite prisoner and grabs the girl. Without wasting a single second, Yukio opens fire on the demon, while Shiemi comes out completely unharmed and bathed in victory. With her legs finally working, the girl gets up and makes peace with her mom in a super cheesy way. After this family drama show, the brothers return to the academy only to find out the blonde girl stalked them there and also enrolled to be an exorcist, proving the protagonist will never have a minute of peace. Our protagonist's academic life doesn't last 5 minutes before he bumps into Ryuji, a delinquent who looks like he sniffed expired deodorant and who scores a 98 on exams, while Rin gloriously pulls a 2. They almost throw hands in the classroom, but are separated by the class. When Shiemi innocently tries to approach Rin wanting to be friends, Ryuji starts mocking them, asking if she's the protagonist's side piece. Rin tries to play the tough guy by denying any friendship, proving he has the emotional intelligence of a potato. During practical training, they have to run from a demonic reaper. Shima and Kanaku Maru reveal that Ryuji also wants to beat the crap out of Satan, since the protagonist's biological dad obliterated his temple 16 years ago on the infamous Blue Night. Rin realizes he's found his hate-filled soulmate. To prove who has the bigger sword, Ryuji decides to touch the reaper, but the monster smells fear and goes after him. Rin jumps in front to take the hit, but simply tells the beast to let go, and the demon bizarrely obeys right away.
What do you think you're doing?
The two idiots start arguing over who is the original Satan hater, practically making out from all the rival tension. Far from this exorcist daycare, Mephisto sips tea in a building under construction with Amaimon, revealing that this green-haired nutjob is also the protagonist's brother. Amaimon asks when they're going back to the hell of Gehenna, but Mephisto says he prefers to stay on Earth since using traumatized teens as entertainment is his favorite fetish. Reality knocks on the protagonist's door when he realizes the school food costs more than both his kidneys on the black market. After whining in Mephisto's ear for money, the director tosses them the miserable sum of 2,000 yen to survive the whole month. To avoid dying of starvation, Yukio suggests they buy their own ingredients and use the dorm kitchen. The plan is perfect for him to escape the 3 unbearable girls who keep shoving home-cooked meals down his throat every day. The problem is that the food Rin prepares magically starts disappearing at night. They discover the kitchen already had an owner, Ukobak, a cooking spirit who got absolutely outraged seeing 2 spiky-haired teens violating the hot hole of his stove. Rin doesn't take the disrespect lightly and engages in an intense late-night culinary war with the spirit, clashing pots and pans until the two forge a brotherhood based on sweat and seasoning. But the peace ends when Yukio's 3 stalkers invade the dorm looking for Shiemi, find Ukobak's divine food, and throw it all in the trash out of pure jealousy, leaving their own mediocre bento boxes in its place. The cooking spirit gets so triggered he turns into a giant monster and decides to roast the girls as punishment. Rin manages to tame the beast before the dorm turns into a high school barbecue. When he realizes the girls just wanted to give love in the form of carbs, Rin smacks the back of Yukio's head with a colossal slap and forces Mr. Perfect to swallow every single bite of those bentos right to the bottom. The next day, Yukio gets a day off because his stomach is exploding, while Rin and Ukobach prepare another massive lunch just to make sure he never complains again. Shiemi desperately tries to buy friends and latches onto Izumo, who immediately spots the rare opportunity to have a free personal slave. Yukio announces there's going to be a training camp and tells the gang to pick their RPG classes, leaving our protagonist looking like a deer in headlights because he has the IQ of a fern. Konaku Maru suggests Rin pick the night class, since he spends all day holding his own sword anyway. In the weird eye patch teacher's class, the gang learns to summon magical familiars. Izumo brings 2 little foxes to the game, and Shiemi summons a living green weed. The teacher warns that demons can smell weak people, which leaves Shiemi sweating cold. Soon after, Izumo decides to use her new friend as a delivery app, sending the poor girl to fetch drinks while she goes to take a shower. Rin tries to warn her she's being a sucker, but the girl insists on swallowing the humiliation, thinking serving drinks is the peak of friendship. In the bathroom, Paku confesses she wants to drop the Exorcist course, but before she can fill out the transfer paperwork, a ghoul decides to snack on her face. Izumo panics and tries to summon her foxes, but since she's crapping her pants with fear, the beasts sense her weakness, rebel, and try to bite their own owner. Rin arrives handing out punches to the foxes' faces to save the day, while Shiemi uses her miracle weed to close Paku's wounds. Our useless protagonist tries to draw his demonic blade to finish off the monster, but Yukio appears out of nowhere, shoots the beast, and sends it fleeing. Izumo cries in the corner for being dead weight, while the weirdo teacher reveals from the top of a building that he was the one who sent the monster to attack the girls, proving this school's security manages to be worse than Arkham Asylum's. The Sundara girl wakes up from a nightmare and immediately threatens our protagonist, so he never tells anyone she cried like a baby. Meanwhile, Yukio tries to figure out how a monster invaded a heavily armored school, deducing the obvious. There's a traitor on the team. After recovering, Izumo's useless friend confirms she's bailing on the training, but promises they'll still be besties. In class, Izumo forgets the religious text, and the Mohawk delinquent surprises everyone by reciting the entire Bible from memory. This sparks an absurd beef, with Izumo calling the support class dead weight, since they literally just stand around reading a little book while the others take a beating on the front lines. Obviously, the lights go out and the ghoul returns to finish the job. Shiemi summons her weed to trap the beast, but the creature splits into 2 halves and attacks. Since our protagonist is the devil's spawn, he doesn't panic. Instead, he lures one half away and runs off to find the light switch.
That's it. Come on, buddy.
Bond decides to read the whole gospel to kill the other half, while Shiemi and the boys serve as human shields. Elsewhere, Rin takes a beating and is forced to release his hot, glowing blue fire, killing the monster and revealing his demonic identity to the one-eyed teacher. In the room, Shiemi passes out and Izumo tries to summon her familiars again, failing miserably once more. But at the very last second, the Mohawk finishes praying and the monster evaporates. When Rin comes back thinking he crushed it, Bond attacks him for being a reckless idiot, exactly at the moment Yukio enters the room dragging the suspicious teacher. The eccentric director appears out of nowhere and announces that almost suffocating the students to death was just a pop quiz, leaving everyone looking like clowns. While Shiemi is tossed into the infirmary, the bald kid of the class points out the obvious, saying Rin should focus on being a knight, since it's the only thing he knows how to hold right. Far from there, Yukio throws a fit at the teacher for forcing his brother to use blue fire, but the one-eyed guy reveals that Samael himself ordered him to be the trigger for the protagonist's stress, just to test if the demonic weapon worked. Later, the psychopathic teacher tries to assassinate a sleeping Rin, but Yukio senses the tragedy, hides his brother in another room, and pulls his gun to start a hallway shootout. Rin wakes up to the noise, runs to help, and takes a holy water bath to the face, which burns his demon skin. The one-eyed guy summons a giant beast that mercilessly crushes our hero, but Yukio erases the magic circle on the floor and deletes the monster from existence. Rin seizes the opening running, puts his giant sword to the teacher's neck, and the guy finally drops the sad lore. He reveals he survived the Blue Night, lost his left eye, and accidentally killed his own family when he was possessed, creating a mortal hatred for anything related to the devil. To show he's a badass, Rin lets the teacher shove a spear deep into his stomach without blinking, saying he can handle the penetration if it makes the lunatic stop attacking innocent people. The one-eyed guy leaves, warning that the hater list is long. The plant girl arrives desperately trying to heal the hole in the protagonist's gut, having no idea that his flesh regenerates on its own. While the gang goes to stuff their faces with food to celebrate still being alive, Samael calls hell. Amaimon, who spends his free time trampling gigantic corpses, announces he's arriving at the school in hopes that someone will finally cure his miserable boredom. We find our protagonist complaining about the heat like a true deadbeat while forgetting to buy Mr. Perfect Brothers water. Yukio flaunts his first-class Exorcist title, and Rin proves his maturity by breaking his glasses in a tantrum, only to discover the nerd has an entire drawer full of spare pairs like an ophthalmological psychopath. Meanwhile, a giant demonic cat named Kuro hears gossip about Shiro's death and decides to throw a fit in the middle of a bridge, calling everyone a liar. Yukio arrives, holding a suspicious bottle that Shiro left to kill the creature if it lost control. But Rin steps in, claiming he possesses demonic telepathy, which is really just an excuse to heavily headbutt the beast and say he perfectly understands the drama of losing daddy. Kuro accepts the friendship and starts crying like a giant baby. From up high, that clown Samael tries to egg his brother Amaimon into fighting Rin, but the guy has the same desire to work as you do on a Monday and decides to just take a stroll to see the city. At the end of the day, Yukio decides to open Shiro's supposed lethal chemical weapon to put the cat down, only to discover the bottle was full of catnip wine. The old man trolled everyone from the beyond, and Kuro is now officially the protagonist's domesticated pet. The rookies are thrown into their first official mission in a coastal town infested by a kraken that spends its days puking black ink into the ocean. Snooty Izumo trips over a brat named Yohei, who is living his own pathetic revenge journey because his dad vanished 6 months ago trying to take on the monster. The kid has the audacity to call Izumo cute, making her ego swell more than a pufferfish. The team gets the mission to act as glorified babysitters for the boy before he commits tactical suicide in the sea. When the attack finally happens, Rin's useless cat tries to fight the giant squid and takes a miserable beating, forcing the brat himself to throw a harpoon at the beast.
Doesn't matter if you lose your way. Thing is, you can't chicken out once you've made up your mind.
Rin decides it's time to draw his sword and shine, but is rudely interrupted by the supposedly dead dad who pops out of nowhere completely unharmed. Turns out the old man simply became best buddies with the monster, who had a change of heart and served as a maritime Uber to bring the guy back home. While the idiots wait for the bus to ditch this bizarre place, the kid shows up with his dog to say goodbye. It's at this moment that Izumo suffers the ultimate humiliation, discovering the kid only thought she was cute because her ridiculous eyebrows are absolutely identical to his damn mutts. The gang gets a free trip to an amusement park, where Shiemi finally ditches the potato sack she calls a kimono and puts on a decent uniform. But party pooper Yukio splits everyone into pairs to hunt a ghost haunting the place. Rin and Shiemi find the phantom, which reveals itself to be just a lonely spirit making up for his early death. While Rin chases the perverted little ghost, that weirdo Amaimon pops out of nowhere, steals the protagonist's sword, and unsheathes it, just to force his demonic form to come out and play. Amaimon decides to use Rin's face as a punching bag to test the kid's durability, beating him brutally. But Rin completely loses his mind, grabs his attacker's neck, and starts deep-frying the lunatic alive with blue flames, which gets Amaimon so hyped, he decides to cause an entire earthquake out of pure joy. Meanwhile, Shiemi catches the harassing ghost in a ball pit right in time before the roller coaster debris almost crushes her. The monstrous Rin hears her screams, regains a shred of consciousness, and summons a giant hand of fire to obliterate the rubble. The ghost says thanks for the fun and fades into the beyond. Amaimon steps on Rin's back and gets ready to break the sword and end the show, but the useless background character Yamada magically appears to save the day. Amaimon puts the sword away, deactivating Rin's berserk mode, leaving him terrified of his own incompetence. To crown the chaos, Yamada reveals his true identity as Shura Kirigaku Rei, a buxom elite exorcist who had been fooling everyone the whole time. We meet Shura Kirigaku Rei, a high-level exorcist apprentice actress who spent the last few days pretending to be just another student, hiding her massive physical and magical attributes in the same classroom as our useless protagonist. Her mission was simple: investigate the kid's kinship to Satan and ship him off to the afterlife if the gossip was confirmed. Meanwhile, the otaku demon Mephisto is dragged to the True Cross Order headquarters, standing trial for secretly protecting the heir of hell. Obviously, the cosmic clown acts crazy, throws his interdimensional chess in the geezers' faces, and argues that keeping the ticking time bomb alive was purely for the good of the company. Shura's life turns into a bureaucratic hell, torn between slicing the guy like the Vatican ordered, or sucking it up and fulfilling Father Shiro's dying wish to look after the brat. Her doubts evaporate faster than your paycheck at the start of the month when she pins Rin against the wall and realizes the late priest really did tame this hellhound as if he were his legitimate son. The protagonist spends the entire night in tears, reminiscing about the moments he shared with his old man, only to show up late to class the next day wearing his usual hungover face. And to the complete despair of his already fragile heart, he discovers that the student-disguised assassin who was dying to play with her blade on his neck has just been promoted to his new homeroom teacher. Our favorite hothead pulls an all-nighter, remembering the days when he was a violent brat throwing punches at everyone, until old man Shiro showed up to calm his nerves. As soon as the semester ends, the wannabe ghost hunters are dumped in the middle of the woods for a nighttime survival camp. The mission is stupid and deadly. Find and light a demonic peg lantern in the forest using a single, measly match. Since Rin can't light his own fire without lighting up the whole neighborhood and revealing his true nature, he promises to behave. The squad of morons decides to split up in the dark, exactly like every teen horror movie where the extras die for free in the first act. Giant mutant insects start attacking everyone, and when the useless damsel Shiemi faints from fear in the middle of the chaos, Rin is forced to unleash his blue heat in the dark to fry the bugs. Ryuji pops up out of nowhere asking what the hell that was, but our protagonist dodges the question with the agility of a corrupt politician. They regroup with the rest of the losers who found the lantern and discover that the metal freak has a ravenous appetite for female flesh. So, the geniuses come up with a master plan. Use the docile Shiemi as live bait to carry the monster across a river of insects while trying not to get eaten. Miraculously, the plan works with 0 lethal casualties, but Rin does them the favor of breaking the wooden bridge with all his dead weight, summoning a steroid-pumped insect straight from the water, ready to have the whole group for dinner. The protagonist is saved by the bleach-blonde delinquent, who takes advantage of the tense mood to drop that cliché speech about the unbreakable power of friendship. The group finally heads back to camp, carrying the giant lantern, thinking the worst is over, but their peace lasts shorter than your last romantic relationship. Out of nowhere, the Earth King Amaimon drops from the sky riding a bizarre monster. Shura immediately realizes playtime is over, draws her giant blade, and spits out a divine barrier to keep the party crashers out, soaking everyone in holy water, except for our demonic protagonist. While the Four Eyes Yukio is lost in the woods chasing fake flares like a blind idiot, Shura tosses the main sword back to Rin and tells him to deal with his problematic little brother. Amidst the chaos, a parasitic insect takes control of the back of Shiemi's neck, forcing her to march out of the protective barrier only to be kidnapped by Amaimon, who shamelessly announces he wants to make the girl his new wife. Rin gets completely pissed at the imminent cucking and rushes to shove his sheathed blade into the demon's face, but gets crushed into the dirt like a piece of recyclable trash. The squad of extras decides to abandon the safe zone and attack the Earth King with smoke flares, managing only to singe the villain's hair before being simultaneously strangled, fractured, and humiliated. Seeing his friends being turned into Exorcist pate, Rin has no choice but to rip his sword from its scabbard with full force, spewing blue flames everywhere and revealing his dirty little secret in front of the entire cast. Yukio arrives just in time to witness the chaos, while the protagonist mercilessly deep fries Amaimon's face. The villain fights dirty by brutally pulling Rin's hidden tail, but the excess hellish energy leaking from the kid's body starts cracking the sword's blade itself, threatening to turn the entire forest into a nuclear BBQ. Our hot-headed protagonist's useless sword can no longer hold back the literal fire in his tail, and the blue flames leak everywhere, exposing his true nature to the whole world. Thanks to this, he is immediately captured by a shiny armored blonde named Arthur A. Angel, which sounds perfectly like a generic RPG knight name, and thrown into a pathetic trial before Mephisto and the cowardly geezers of the Grigori Council. While the kid awaits his execution, Yukio and the squad of extras rush to get the blade fixed by some random blacksmith. But things spiral out of control when Amaimon decides to crash the trial just to beat Rin up for free. Mephisto, thriving in the chaos like a professional gambling addict, turns to the geezers and lays his cards on the table, saying the boy could either be the savior of humanity or the king of hell. He gives them the choice to wake the kid up to save their wrinkled skins, or just let everyone die right then and there. The Grigori geezers are literally pissing their pants in fear of Amaimon, so they beg Mephisto to unleash the devil's spawn to use as a weapon. A bunch of useless folks, including Shura and the knockoff paladin, try to stop the Earth King, but take a humiliating beating. Amaimon himself frees Rin from his crystal prison just to beat him up some more, because dumb villains love playing with their food.
I've come to settle things, Rin Okumura.
Ryuji crashes the trial with the sword. A ridiculous game of hide-and-seek with the council ensues, until Yukio hands the weapon to Rin, who claps Amaimon without breaking a sweat, and immediately passes out from exhaustion. The paladin Arthur still tries to land a finishing blow on an unconscious kid, but the geezers put a stop to that cowardice. Now the protagonist has a 24/7 babysitter and 6 months to pass an exam, or he goes straight to the grave. The next day, he tries to help out in class, but the squad of losers nearly has a heart attack out of fear of him, especially the bald kid Kaneko Maru. Rin is sent off to a super dangerous flame control training involving lighting candles, while Shura and Yukio go play in the batting cages. Frustrated with his own incompetence, our hero ends up losing control and burning all the teachers' clothes off, leaving them standing there in their underwear. This pisses Yukio off so much that his body starts showing signs of a potential hidden demonic infection. Meanwhile, the cowardly Kaneko Maru ends up getting possessed by a bizarre shadow due to how much fear he feels towards the protagonist. One of the girls decides to give Rin a pep talk, saying that swallowing demon blood is super normal in this school of lunatics, and right as he thanks her for the motivation, he's attacked by the same shadow that seduced the bald kid. The shadow critter tries to chew up the protagonist, but the perfect little brother comes in guns blazing and saves the day as usual. Mephisto discovers the demon is named Gufu, and sends the Exorcist interns to hunt for holes in the school's magical barrier to figure out how that thing got in. In a plot twist that shocks absolutely no one, bald Kaneko Maru is the culprit behind the invasion. The kid tries to resist the entity and heads back to his room like a scared puppy. When Yukio sneaks off to deal with his own issues, the bald kid pops up in the room with the demon perched on his shoulder like a cursed parrot. His buddies hear screams from the men's bathroom and rush in to see the drama, only to find the protagonist pointing fire at the crying bald kid. Instead of using his damn brain and warning them that there's a monster on the kid's back, our dumb hero keeps his mouth shut and lets his friends think he's the threat, falling into the laziest misunderstanding cliche of all time. While this clown show goes down, Shura and another teacher find a suspicious van that leads straight to an abandoned lab in the snowy mountains. The bald kid wakes up in the hospital but is completely consumed by the demon and goes on a blind revenge spree. In the middle of the brawl, the protagonist decides to use the power of friendship, squashes the beast once and for all, and forces the bald kid to apologize. After this absurd embarrassment, Kaneko Maru packs his bags and goes whining to the train station to run away from school, but Rin and the rest of the squad show up to puke a motivational speech right in his face, convincing the kid to stick around and remain a protected extra for the rest of the season. We catch up with the spacey plant girl, who realizes the short-tempered Izumo's birthday is coming up, so she decides to throw a surprise party, even though she has absolutely no clue how normal human beings interact. Seeing the impending disaster, Ryuji takes the reins and puts the pawns to work, ordering Rin and the useless bald kid to bake the cake while he and the plant girl hang sequins for the event. Meanwhile, Renzo drags his friend Noriko along to look for a gift, but Izumo starts tailing them like a professional stalker, assuming they're on a romantic date while she drools with jealousy behind the scenes. During the night, Four Eyes Yukio pops out of nowhere to check the decorations and gets congratulated by the plant girl, revealing the tragedy that he and Rin were born near Christmas, meaning their dad saved money by lumping their gifts into a single party. The next day, stalker Izumo sees Renzo and Noriko sharing an umbrella and concludes they're about to swap spit, jumping in the middle to ruin the mood.
There, I got it.
But idiot Renzo opens his big mouth and vomits the secret about the surprise party right there, making Izumo act all humble and demand that it be a joint party so everyone feels special, exactly like you do when you get a like from a bot. The whole class gathers to stuff their faces with cake, but the plant girl notices Yukio isolated in the corner looking like a guy who just lost everything in the stock market. When she goes to give the emo boy some attention, he tells a sad story about their dad making up lies about their birth and how the only real clue is that it was snowing, forcing the girl to wish him a happy, tragic existence just to try and force a smile. But a poor man's joy dies faster than your phone's battery, and the mood is completely shattered when Yukio gets the news that the monastery where the brothers grew up was mercilessly attacked, proving that no one is allowed to have a single day of peace. The brothers rush back to their childhood monastery, only to find the place more busted than your bank account, with graffiti on the wall demanding that all of Satan's relatives be wiped from existence. The only clue is a generic masked man, so Rin completely loses his mind and runs off like a rabid dog to hunt the culprit down. But he almost becomes dead meat and has to be saved by Four Eyes and the bikini teacher, letting the masked guy escape. Yukio chases the dude and bumps into Igor Neuhaus, that bizarre teacher who has a mortal hatred for the devil's family, making Four Eyes connect the dots and suspect a conspiracy is brewing. Determined to steal the spotlight, Yukio pumps his own brother full of tranquilizers, dumping Rin's passed-out body into the teacher's lap before heading off to play the lone detective. During the night, the masked man invades the dorm and ties up Ryuji, Renzo, and the useless bald kid, using the Three Stooges as bait to lure out the devil's son. The weirdo Mephisto tries to join the fun, but stuck-up blonde Arthur intercepts the clown with an arrest warrant from the Vatican, accusing him of playing God in a macabre lab. While Yukio tries to play hero and ends up caught in the villain's trap like an amateur, Rin wakes up from his coma and kicks the door down with the teacher. He draws his sword and unleashes his burning blue flames to melt the ropes, saving the useless kids before bringing his giant blade down on the masked attacker. When the mask falls off, the grand Mexican soap opera plot twist reveals that the attacker is a woman. Before anyone can arrest the crazy lady, Igor pops out of nowhere to block the way and let her escape. While Igor is captured and confesses that the woman is literally the reanimated corpse of his dead wife, Yukio is dragged onto a mysterious train where he comes face to face with his long-lost grandfather, proving this family tree is an absolute mess. Four Eyes listens to his new grandpa dump a truckload of family trauma, revealing that the Exorcist order executed their mother for spreading her legs for the Dark Lord. After ruining the kid's psychological state, the old man shows off a secret lab and invites his grandson to play mad scientist and save the world from demons. Meanwhile, Rin listens in on Igor's interrogation, where he swears up and down he didn't use necromancy on his own wife, warning them that her vengeful corpse is out there looking to erase anyone who smells like the devil. Deciding to play the hometown hero, Rin goes out to hunt the zombie before she chews up his friends, but the plant girl has already found the undead lady passed out in her yard. True to her complete lack of common sense, the girl drags the undead terrorist inside, brews some tea, and decides they're gonna be besties just because the corpse complimented her grass. But the second Rin bursts in sword in hand, the undead lady simply shorts out, her body rotting faster than your New Year's resolutions. They drag the zombie outside just in time to run into stuck-up blonde Arthur and his extermination squad. While the goons tie the woman up, Rin decides to trade blows with the Holy Paladin, but real chaos erupts when an extra shoots at Rin, and the demon-hating zombie magically throws herself in front of the bullet, taking the projectile to save the protagonist's skin. Spilling all her embalming fluid on the ground, the walking corpse cries in Igor's arms, wishing for a peaceful garden before the plant monsters attack the exorcists, allowing the couple to escape to cry in peace. But before anyone can chase after them, the emergency bell rings. Back at the Vatican, the Paladin discovers that the previous leaders have been tossed in the trash, and the new supreme boss is Yukio's grandpa, with Four Eyes himself sitting right next to him, proving that nepotism is the most powerful magic of all. With True Cross Academy shutting its doors, Otaku director Mephisto takes the blame for the latest disaster and gets fired, proving that even in the magical world, shit always rolls downhill to HR. Meanwhile, the Vatican cleans house on the board of directors, and Grandpa Ernst Egan seizes power, promoting Four Eyes Yukio to Paladin and head of the Japanese branch. The old geezer announces Operation Jacob's Ladder, a peaceful plan to annihilate demons, extract their juice, create an artificial portal, and drop a bomb subtly named Messiah into into it to blow up hell and turn the twins back into normal humans. Completely hyper-focused on his work, Yukio decides the best way to help is by trying to put a bullet in Kuro the cat, but our useless protagonist jumps in the way and ignites his blue flames. In response, Yukio casually reveals his own demonic claws and beats his brother unconscious, leaving Shura shocked at how much he's been hiding his own edgy side. Rin wakes up in a stinking cell with Mephisto, who listens to all the gossip, turns into a random street mutt, and simply abandons the kid to die. Abandoned just like you on Valentine's Day, Rin gets a visit from Grandpa Ernst, who gives him a heads up about his imminent execution. The secondary characters even try to play rescue, but blonde boy Arthur Angel blocks the path, forcing Shura to stay behind and trade punches with him. Rin is dragged to the school roof and tortured until he becomes a human juice box, bleeding non-stop so his precious liquid can finish opening the artificial door to hell. While the protagonist keeps getting squeezed to the last drop to open the portal, Yukio has a crisis of conscience and complains to his grandpa that the plan was to save his brother, not turn him into a ketchup packet. Wanting to be the martyr of the hour, Four Eyes cuts his own arm and offers his blood for the ritual, causing the gate to hell to finally form. But it completely backfires when Satan decides to use Yukio's body as a free Airbnb and starts destroying everything around him, right as the extras arrive to watch the disaster. Grandpa Ernst ignores the chaos and drops the Messiah bomb into the portal, which is about as effective as throwing a toothpick into a volcano, resulting in an avalanche of demons that drag the old man straight into the abyss. While the nursing home burns down, Yukio hears Daddy Satan's deep voice in his mind, revealing the backstory of their mom, Yuri. Apparently, she was a tree-hugger hippie who lived in the woods hugging monsters until she let Satan penetrate her body and soul, swallowing the essence of the Dark Lord and getting pregnant with twins right after. When Grandpa sentenced his own daughter to death, Satan panicked, possessed the old man, and freed Yuri, causing the infamous Blue Knight in the process. Father Shiro even tried to kill the babies when he found the dying woman in the woods, but his heart softened and he adopted the runts. Back in the present, Yukio questions if his grandfather really ordered his mother's death, and when the old geezer confirms it, Yukio just watches him get sucked into hell. Consumed by angsty teen rage, the kid relaxes his body and lets Satan take the steering wheel for good. With the prodigy boy's body under new management, Satan announces his grand corporate startup project of merging Earth and Hell into one single world. When the squad of extras tries to stop the construction, they are wiped off the map as easily as dusting off old furniture. Before everyone becomes dead meat, Shura steps in to take the beating for them and buy time for the group to come up with a genius plan. She acts as a punching bag while Rin destroys the gate to hell, and the rest of the team plays civil defense to evacuate the civilians. As expected of a hastily thrown together plan, Shura is brutally slammed into the ground, and Shiemi tries to use the power of dialogue to calm the villain. Before the blonde girl is turned into fertilizer, Rin drops his glowing sword and tries to cure his brother using nothing but small talk and emotional triggers. The smooth talking actually works, and Yukio manages to regain a shred of consciousness, but Satan doesn't accept the breach of contract and forces the kid's hand to shoot Rin right in the stomach. In shock over having put a hole in his own brother, Yukio decides the best therapy is to put a bullet in his own head, but Rin delivers a healing punch to his face, crying and screaming that suicide doesn't pay the bills. The power of brotherly love and physical assault finally wakes Yukio up, forcing Satan to vacate his rental body. But since the Dark Lord is a stubborn boomer who refuses to accept defeat, he simply takes control of the giant Gehenna Gate itself and decides to carry on with his plan in the most bizarre way possible. The useless task force made up of Rin, Yukio, Shura, and Arthur keeps punching the Gehenna Gate with absolutely zero success, while a flood of demons leaks through the hole like an open sewer on a rainy day. When all seems lost, the secondary students finally decide to use their brains and set up a giant mirror rig to redirect sunlight straight from the Vatican, bombarding the monsters with heavily armed vitamin D. Taking advantage of the free artificial tanning, the Okumura brothers unleash all their demonic power simultaneously, fly straight into the portal, and blow the whole damn thing up, celebrating the destruction with a sweaty, awkward embrace of pure bromance. In some random existential void, Satan has been reduced to a measly stovetop flame whining to the ghostly voice of Yuri. She pats the poor bastard on the head and tells him they tried to rush the end of the world, proving patience was never this couple's strong suit. Meanwhile, Mephisto enjoys the VIP view and drops some philosophical musings to a Maimon about an old man who lost his soul in a bet. Realizing the geezer geezer just wanted to pause time to enjoy the moment. A month goes by, classes go back to normal, and the twins decide to take a family road trip to visit the cave where they were born and their mother's grave. But since peace is an alien concept to this crew, an evil spirit decides to ruin the trip and attacks them on the highway. Rin destroys the creature's body, which magically takes control of an entire truck, activating reverse isekai mode. Yukio wants to gun the vehicle down, assuming there's only a corpse at the wheel, but our negative IQ protagonist insists the driver is still alive and their job is to protect people. So Rin just yells at the crew to find a weak point and charges face first into the 18-wheel disaster. The pursuit of a gas mask-wearing Breaking Bad cosplayer spirals out of control when a brat with negative survival instincts decides to run into the middle of the fight to watch the Exorcists up close, immediately getting taken hostage. Far away, Rin embarrasses himself on the dorm roof trying to light candles with his blue fire, only to get a brutal scolding from Shura for almost burning the whole building down and getting reminded that he could be executed if he loses control again. Duty calls, and the two meet Yukio at the crime scene, where a suspicious exorcist named Todo explains that the left eye of the impure king was stolen, and the crook released a toxic gas in the building, with the useless kid included as a bonus. The kid's mom begs for help, and Yukio, showing the empathy of a brick wall, tells the woman to prepare for a funeral. Rin gets pissed at his brother's coldness, but Shura drags him back while Yukio puts on a hazmat suit with Todo himself. However, our stubborn protagonist invades the building carrying a canary that works as a demonic fart detector. When the bird stops singing, they discover the kidnapper was made entirely of gas and the eye was a fake. Out of nowhere, Todo kicks Yukio in the back, tears off his own suit, and reveals he's a demon.
Still, I can keep you busy a bit longer.
When Rin tries to burn away the poison, he accidentally fries the hostage along with it. Todo pins Yukio down, delivers a cliché villain speech about the weaknesses of the human heart, checks his watch like a government employee at the end of their shift, and vanishes in a cloud of smoke. The kid is dying, and Yukio starts having a panic attack remembering his childhood. So he does the most logical thing, jabs a needle into his own arm to focus up and treat the patient. With the boy saved and returned to his mother, Mephisto pops in to ruin the party, announcing that the real eye was stolen and the Kyoto branch was also attacked. He shoves Yukio onto a special task force, leaving Rin frothing with rage. In the end, the gang boards a train to Kyoto, with Rin acting like a toddler with a tourist pamphlet, while Shiemi spies on him from afar before the rest of the extras crash the train car. The rookies are dispatched as glorified nurses to the Suguro family inn to patch up the exorcists who got beat up in the last attack, while the rest of the gang gets actual assignments. An extra makes it crystal clear that Rin is less wanted than an IRS audit, sending our hero to pick up trash. Accepting his place at the bottom of the food chain, Rin stumbles upon an old man drowning his liver in alcohol in broad daylight, begging for help to slice a watermelon. The old geezer turns out to be Ryuji's dad, proving that anger management issues skipped a generation. Rin and the drunkard trade compliments about the kid, realizing their family dynamic is bizarrely healthy, right up until the old man randomly bolts. Inside the inn, a reality show-worthy catfight blows up between the Hojo sisters and Juzo, resulting in Ryuji having to block a giant magical snake to stop the squad from destroying the makeshift hospital. Playing the adult in the room, Ryuji lectures the whole daycare center for fighting while the impure king's eyes are missing. Meanwhile, Shura discovers that base security is about as effective as a leaky sieve, since the theft of the left eye was just a cheap distraction for an inside traitor to pocket the right eye without breaking a sweat. With everyone being treated as a suspect, paranoia takes over the place. In another corner, Renzo tries to keep his distance from the son of Satan to preserve his own life, but ends up sharing a bento with Rin because his hunger outweighs his fear of death. The problem is that our protagonist, with his zero peripheral vision, accidentally downs Shura's secret stash, chugging the whole bottle of dummy juice. Completely wasted and boasting the alcohol tolerance of a malnourished teenager, Rin begins reminiscing about his late adoptive father before finally passing out cold, leaving Renzo to haul his new friend's limp body back to their room. The hangover hits hard, and Ryuji wakes up with blackout amnesia, eating a depressing breakfast while ignoring our protagonist with his arsonist tendencies. Rin decides the best idea for the day is to borrow some candles to play pyromaniac and try to control his blue fire, since his IQ doesn't allow for more complex activities. Meanwhile, the Miyota sect holds an emergency meeting filled with pure distrust because they figured out there's a traitor in their midst. People start pointing pointing fingers at Mamushi and Juzo, but the award for prime suspect goes to Suguro, Ryuji's dad, who's been chanting some bizarre mantras no one has ever heard, and even had the audacity to skip the meeting. In another corner, Shiemi cries her eyes out, complaining about being completely useless, a feeling you probably understand all too well. But Kamiki steps up and calls her a weed, which the girl takes as a massive compliment, promising to be the most stubborn, resilient weed in the garden. Rin, on the other hand, almost burns the whole roof down with the candles, but manages to light almost all of them the second he gets frustrated and gives up trying. Soon after, he finds Miwa praying to his ancestors. Miwa has an emotional breakdown, claiming he has zero talent and will defend the sect whatever the cost. Playing shock therapist, Rin promises not to be a demonic threat anymore and insists on being his friend, making the kid bawl his eyes out upon realizing the blue-flamed boy might not be a psychopath after all. To wrap it all up, the old man Suguro appears in a dark corner, smiling at a flame exactly like a B-movie villain. Ryuji decides to play detective and stalks Juzo down to the underground vault, finding a lovely trail of knocked-out extra exorcists along the way. Our protagonist finally manages to light the little candles without committing arson, but Shura kills his vibe by reminding him that he's just a weapon of mass destruction in Mephisto's hands. Down below, Juzo confronts Mamushi, who reveals herself to be the traitor with a brain washed cleaner than hotel sheets. She swears that allying with Todo and stealing the right eye is the best way to expose the Vatican for hiding the left eye. The sect's elders watch the whole thing from the comfort of the security room while Ryuji leaps from the shadows to break up the fight. The ceiling literally rots away, and Todo drops from the sky like a bizarre giant pigeon. Mamushi grabs the demonic relic and bails with him. Looking for answers, Ryuji goes to demand them from his own dad, but the old man pulls the classic state secret card and treats his son like a snot-nosed brat. Watching Ryuji disown his father in front of everyone triggers a painful flashback in Rin regarding his own daddy issues. The kid gets so emotional that his blue flames start leaking from his body like a broken gas stove. He begs Ryuji not to make the same mistake he did, but ends up getting swatted away by Juzo, who recognizes the demonic fire instantly. Taking the cue, Shura steps in and ruthlessly beats Rin to a pulp in front of the whole crowd. Chaos ensues, and Ryuji's dad discreetly slips an envelope into Shura's pocket before quietly sneaking away. Meanwhile, Mamushi runs across the rooftops, panting and nearly coughing up her lungs from exhaustion while carrying the massive weight of the demonic eye. Yukio finally shows his face, and the head of the sect drops the bomb that if the two eyes are brought together, a tsunami of miasma will sweep everyone into an early grave, and that only Ryuji's dad knows how to deal with the catastrophe. Playing armchair psychologist, Shura tells Yukio that Rin would make a way better exorcist because he doesn't repress his feelings like a depressed robot. Following this questionable advice, to be honest, Yukio looks deep into her eyes and confesses that he's always hated her, setting a wonderfully awkward mood. Shiemi continues her role of worrying prematurely, until the crew enters the room announcing that the relic is gone and Rin has been caged up for playing Human Torch in front of the whole sect. In the cell, Shura hands Rin the mystery letter, but since our protagonist has the brain of an oyster and can't read cursive, Yukio has to serve as his personal translator. The letter dives into a tragic past, revealing that Ryuji's mother was dying because of the eye's rotten smoke. To make matters worse, the document confesses that Rin's dad, the famous Father Shiro, defeated a demon right on top of their sacred flame, destroying everything. To top it off, the priest brazenly stole the sect's Koma sword in broad daylight, proving that the biggest thief in this story was always our protagonist's family. Todo and the delusional Mamushi rush to the old Miyota hideout, where the fool thinks the demonic eyes will be safe, blissfully unaware that the place houses the impure king himself taking a nap in the basement. Meanwhile, the magic letter left by Tatsuma reveals that the blue flame sword is the famous Kurikata, and that the late Father Shiro tried to steal the pointy toy. But after Shiro plays doctor and cures a bunch of people coughing up miasma in the temple, Tatsuma just hands the sword over and helps him escape, because apparently, curing a demonic flu buys you priceless sacred relics. Back to the disastrous present, Todo decides to take off his mask and show his true, horrifying demonic form to Mamushi. Before he can dispatch the girl to the afterlife, Tatsuma spawns out of nowhere breathing fire into the traitor's face, promising that the impure king will bite the dust with him. It turns out Tatsuma has a pet firebird named Kadura, who literally feeds on lies and gossip, just like your relatives at holiday parties. But competence runs far from this family, and and Todo magically survives, returning the eyes to the impure king and waking the giant monster from its millennia-long hibernation. To make things worse, Todo attacks Tatsuma, leaving the old man punctured and bleeding on the floor before doing the unthinkable and forcing the poor bird Kadura into his own body.
You see?
Now Todo is possessed and belly full of flames, while Tatsuma's brilliant letter ends with a desperate plea for the useless protagonist to use his sword to clean up the mess the adults couldn't. The resentful Four Eyes Yukio keeps doubting his brother's capabilities, while Shura decides the protagonist needs to man up and make his own decisions. The only problem is that Rin is suffering from severe performance anxiety and simply can't draw his big sword from its sheath out of sheer fear of losing control and blowing everything up. To add to the humiliation, Mephisto pops out of nowhere to announce that Rin has been sentenced to death, but leaves some invisibility gear as a freebie on the floor before vanishing. While the traitor Mamushi comes back whining and begging everyone to defeat the impure king, Shura completely ignores Inquisition protocols, hands the jammed sword to Ryuji, and orders the useless teens to break into the prison and rescue the condemned boy. Mephisto's gadgets turn the squad invisible, but Rin's cell has a bizarre security system that freezes anyone with hostile intentions. The only one who manages to pass through the magic door is Shiemi, because her head is as empty of malice as your bank account. She finds Rin going full emo, crying in a dark corner, thinking he really should just become fertilizer. The girl throws his guilt trip out the window, hugs the half-demon, and cures his depression instantly, leaving the kid shocked that she isn't terrified of his hellish nature. After the two escape the slammer, Ryuji finally swallows his generic delinquent pride, apologizes, and admits he was only throwing a tantrum because Rin hid the tiny detail of being the devil's own heir. The impure king has barely woken up and is already stinking up the whole city with its toxic gas, forcing the tamers to summon a fire demon to try and clean the air. Meanwhile, the student squad finds Tatsuma laid out on the ground fighting to breathe, revealing that his magic bird Kadura spent every last drop of energy healing his fatal wounds to keep the old man from kicking the bucket. Tatsuma spills the beans, explaining that the impure king will swell up into a rotten mushroom castle and explode in a show of lethal spores. His suicidal plan is to use the pack to burn all the slime, clearing a path so the useless Rin can pierce the defense and slice the monster's heart in two. But realizing the old man can't hold on much longer, Kadura decides it needs a juicier host and proposes a direct pact with Ryuji. Old man Tatsuma cries, begging the boy not to accept, but Ryuji ignores the drama, embraces the firebird, and learns the magic spells in the blink of an eye. Far away, the girls are left with the grunt work of carrying the old man's body to a hospital, while director Mephisto watches the whole disaster from the VIP seats, eating popcorn. At the same time, Four Eyes Yukio finally bumps into Todo, but instead of throwing punches right away, Todo dons his psychologist from hell coat and starts digging into Yukio's traumas, rubbing in his face all the jealousy and repressed hatred he hides from his own brother. Yukio finally decides to have a therapy session in the middle of the chaos, admitting that he hates his brother just as much as he loves him, but the award for biggest hatred goes to himself. To take out the frustration of someone in desperate need of a shrink, he conjures a water prison to cage Todo. Meanwhile, the giant pet cat Kuro carries the squad, consisting of Ryuji and our useless protagonist, to a spot where Ryuji can conjure a barrier. The Mohawk kid questions how the hell Rin manages to stay so calm in an apocalypse like this, and Rin drops a generic catchphrase saying everyone is doing their best. But the facade shatters when Ryuji notices the protagonist's hand is shaking like a leaf on the sword's hilt, right before he finally raises the damn barrier. Back to the depressed brother. Yukio can barely stay on his feet while Todo escapes the wet prison like it's nothing. Rin feels through their telepathic umbilical cord that his brother is having a rough time, but he's stuck babysitting the barrier. Far off, Renzo and Miwa are playing Tarzan, stuck in a tree with only a single torch stopping them from becoming miasma fertilizer. The bald kid judges Renzo for wanting to bolt while his entire family is on the battlefield, but Renzo, with the mindset of a professional coward just like you, declares that none of it matters if he's toast, and bails. After a flash existential crisis about family expectations, the pink-haired guy swallows his pride and comes back to save his friend.
If I could put it all behind me, life would be way easier. What the?
The girl with the weird eyebrows uses her pet cargo foxes to carry old man Tatsuma to safety, only to end up swallowed by the impure king's slime spores. Shiemi, squeezing blood and tears into some botanical witchcraft, summons her pet weed Ni. The spore infestation begins multiplying to a point where Rin and Kuro's defense becomes a joke. Just as Todo is about to finish off Yukio, the Four eyes glow with the same demonic light as his brothers, shocking the old psychopath. Luckily, Juzo and the Renton Exorcist squad arrive at the last second to stop Todo from finishing the job. The damn spores start popping like teenage pimples, and Ryuji is already choking, gasping for oxygen. Before the protagonist, Ryuji, and the giant cat, the impure king finally shows its true face, a disgusting, pale, massive grub the size of an entire castle, puking toxic waste everywhere. Watching from the VIP box, the eccentric director Mephisto wonders what his little brother will do now that the monstrous grub has decided to chase after the Mohawk kid. Yaozo yells for everyone to get the hell out of the barrier. Outside, Todo decides to philosophize over whether his pet phoenix Kadu-Ra is stronger than Agni, while trading barbs with Juzo, absorbing every hit like a masochistic sponge. Yukio, proving he loves a suicide mission, suggests a tactic that's going to cost them dearly. Juzo and the troop of extras focus on reinforcing the flames while others try to flank the deep-fried villain. Since Todo is a bottomless pit of stupidity, the flames he tries to swallow don't stay in his stomach, causing Kadu-Ra to overload the old man's body. To make his life even worse, it starts raining, and the chunks of ash turn into disgusting mud that hinders his regeneration. Yukio plays captain and orders the team to chop up and separate the mud to keep the villain from putting himself back together. The problem is that the dirty slime comes to life and ties all the exorcists up with tentacles, leaving only Four Eyes free. Meanwhile, the busty teacher Shura breaches the barrier running after Rin. Ryuji burns every last drop of sweat using Kadu-Ra so he doesn't become grub food, but his body hits its limit. With the protagonist still dealing with a mental block and suffering from sword-drawing erectile dysfunction, Ryuji tells him to run while he still can. But Rin, in the middle of the apocalypse, decides to ask Ryuji out on a date to Kyoto Tower for the next day, realizing he has nothing left to lose. Ryuji drops his guard and focuses all his remaining energy purely on the barrier, putting his own life in the trembling hands of the useless hero. In a miracle of the script, the protagonist finally manages to unsheathe the full length of his blade. With a strike bathed in blue fire, he pacifies the disgusting oversized bug like it's nothing. With the giant blade finally out of its sheath, the protagonist sets the impure king ablaze with his blue flames in a desperate attack, but the coward is still holding back, scared of losing his sanity just like when he snapped in the past, choosing to fight with the parking brake on. Meanwhile, the bald coward and the pink-haired kid gossip back at the extras base about Rin and the Mohawk boy going toe-to-toe with the giant grub. Shura gives them a pat of gratitude and dives into the barrier to save the kids. On the other side of the mountain, Yukio keeps trading punches with Todo. When he finally shuts the old man's mouth for a few seconds, Four Eyes has an existential crisis because the villain rubbed his devil DNA right in his face. The battered troop of exorcists gives up on trapping the mud psychopath and makes a run for it. In the woods, Shiemi uses up all her battery to save the fox eyebrow girl. Izumo plays the unbearable tsundere, saying she hates her type, but Shiemi, completely ignoring the concept of personal space, drags the girl out of the toxic slime and declares they're going to be friends whether she likes it or not. Izumo's face gets hot, but she swallows her pride to focus on getting old man Tatsuma down the mountain. Back at the final boss, Shura pops out of nowhere to stop Ryuji from suffocating to death. With the kid passing out from exhaustion and dropping the entire barrier, the spirit Uchukuma decides to lend a hand out of sheer pity for their incompetence. The entity fuses with the protagonist's inferno to unleash a nuclear attack. Rin cries in anticipation, thinking he's going to roast everyone alive, but remembering that his fire didn't burn the blonde gardener earlier, he gathers his courage and drops the bomb. The blue explosion sweeps the mountain, wiping out only the slime and leaving the extras drooling. With the giant monster obliterated, Uchukuma leaves, rubbing it in Rin's face that the attack would have been better if the useless kid hadn't held back. Yukio arrives furiously at the scene and punches his own brother in the face for violating divine rules, while Rin delivers a cheesy speech about accepting his demonic side before pathetically passing out on the ground. With reinforcements finally showing up in the morning and the impure king flushed down the drain, Rin wakes up surrounded by Kuro and Shiemi. Our useless protagonist decides to thank her for her supportive words in the prison, only to receive the most lethal strike in the entire series. Shiemi smiles, gives him that cute speech about how they'll be friends forever, and locks the poor guy in the dungeon of the permanent friend zone. Renzo nearly chokes laughing at someone else's misery, exactly as you would. Shura decides to give this walking daycare a break, while Mephisto uses Yaozo to clear Rin's name with the Vatican. But Shura pins the director to the wall, accusing the suited clown of having ulterior motives regarding his bizarre choice of students. Mephisto simply drops a passive-aggressive death threat, suggesting it would be a shame if such a talented woman died young. Soon after, she warns Four Eyes Yukio that the director is plotting something dirty. In the dead of night, Rin finds his brother passed out in a chair near the vending machines, surviving on coffee and depression. He hands him a bottle of water and tells the genius not to run away from his problems. Dawn breaks with Juzo getting engaged to Mamushi, and the students decide to play tourist. Rin demands to see Kyoto Tower, and his classmates mock him, saying the Devil Boy's wish is their command, before taking a picture spelling out the word Satan with their arms, proving that Exorcist bullying is top tier. Later by the river, Rin tells Yukio he's going to become an exorcist. Four Eyes grumbles that he promised their late father he'd protect his brother, but Rin couldn't care less, and says they'll always be together no matter what. When Rin asks to hear stories of them fighting side by side, Yukio sets the condition that he actually becomes a professional, refusing the offer to vent about his own traumas like a good, repressed, troubled teenager. Back to the miserable high school routine, Rin is reading an Exorcist book that denies the existence of demons, while a disgusting monster floats right in his face. An extra named Seigoda-in panics because he can see the creature too, proving he's suffered a temptaint and unlocked VIP vision to hell. Rin tries to play the seasoned hero, promises to consult his teachers to cure the kid, and accidentally makes his first normal friend at school. The next day, a letter in his locker makes Renzo fantasize about secret admirers, but it's just the resident creep Mephisto inviting Rin to a banquet. Our protagonist throws the invitation in the trash in disgust, but soon has to run when he hears Sei screaming, cornered by a shapeshifter. Rin scares the beast away, but the kid is still shaking like a chihuahua in the winter, begging to stop seeing these freaks. At night, Rin swallows his pride and goes to the headmaster's mansion to beg for help. Mephisto slurps his ramen noodles and casually reveals himself to be Samael, the demon king of time. He throws both of their consciousnesses straight into Gehenna, where Rin tries to beat the crap out of his own boss. Samael just mocks him, pulling the boy's sensitive tail to immobilize him and stealing the Kurikata sword, rubbing it in his face that his demonic heart is entirely locked away inside the scabbard. Back in the real world, the headmaster promises some magic eye drops to cure Rin's friend, as long as he does a dirty little job first. The next morning, the students are assigned a mission to hunt down a portrait demon. Bayuji uses Shiemi's herbs to create a shield, needing everyone to protect him so the magic doesn't fail at the worst possible moment. When Izumo's attack doesn't even leave a scratch, Konoku Maru fires up his 2 functioning brain cells, realizes the painting is called Family Portrait but only has one woman drawn on it, and tells the group to aggressively breach 3 other identical frames scattered around the place. Mephisto hands over the reward. Rin gives the eye drops to his friend and delivers a cliché speech, saying that his friends are the true pillar of his bizarre existence. Four Eyes Yukio gets dragged to the Vatican to sign a blood contract and spill everything he knows about the villain Toto. Arthur and Lou and Light bombard the kid with questions and make the message crystal clear. Breaking the pact means a one-way ticket to the grave, since the Order wants to keep a tight leash on the twin brother of the son of Satan. Later, while helping Shiemi study, Yukio's fragile mind collapses. He reminisces about his training days with his adoptive father, questioning why the hell they were left alive and whose side Mephisto is really playing for on the chessboard. Lucky for him, the blonde is sweet enough to calm down the poor guy's anxiety attacks. The next day, the practical class takes place in Danger's natural habitat, the girls' bathrooms. The target is Mayuko, a perverted spirit obsessed with scaring girls, and the mission falls right into Izumo and Shiemi's laps, while the boys stay outside drooling. Izumo wants to repay the debt of being saved in Kyoto, but when she kicks the door down and finds the ghost, her beloved foxes refuse to work on an empty stomach. The ghost uses the opening to grab and suffocate the two students without an ounce of mercy. Shiemi summons her magic plant, which injects roots into the floor to grow rice at the speed of light, creating an express offering for the spirits. Even with Shiemi being choked near to death, the foxes finally swallow their meal and allow Izumo to disintegrate the monster with the full version of her exorcism. The blonde says thanks, the debt is paid, and the two burst out laughing when they leave the bathroom and find the boys dressed and made up like women, suffering a gratuitous and highly deserved humiliation.
That's what you meant by getting ready?
Meanwhile, in Russia, Shura and the Suits raid a bizarre lab spitting demons through an artificial Gehenna gate. They summon Mephisto, who uses his powers to freeze the hole's time and temporarily lock the passage. Lewin blames this technology on the Illuminati organization, and out of the shadows, Todo appears kissing their supreme leader's boots to celebrate the success of the new global catastrophe. At the Vatican, the guys in suits find out there are Illuminati spies infiltrated, and Shura gets assigned to play detective at the academy. Meanwhile, our useless protagonist and the pink-haired pervert are wallowing in their own despair because they can't get a date for the school festival, proving their women-repellent works flawlessly. They try to turn on the charm for Noriko, who immediately shoots them down. But when the plant girl shows up wearing the official uniform, Rin feels his simp heart beat faster, ready to ask the blonde to the dance. The problem is, she decides to kick him right in the self-esteem by confessing she wants to ask the stressed-out Four Eyes, Yukio. Turns out Yukio himself is too busy pretending to be a professional, rejecting an army of girls and then turning down even poor Shiemi with a smile faker than a $3 bill. Shura laughs at others' misfortune from the shadows before confronting Mephisto, who was dressed as a literal bug snooping on people's lives and keeping an eye on the puppet kid, Nemu. Mephisto threatens to send the redhead downstairs if she doesn't mind her own business. On the day of the festival, Rin is sweating bullets at the food stand and begs Tsundere Izumo on his knees to wear a special outfit and work for him. She accepts just so he'll stop nagging, completely shocked by the protagonist's stupidity and blindly trusting everyone. During the dance, Rin captures Shiemi and pushes the girl onto Yukio, forcing the nerd to bust a move. Finally, Izumo swallows her pride, puts on the outfit Rin gave her, and goes to help at the stand just to keep her promise. But on the way, she gets cornered by the weirdo Nemu. He pulls a precious doll belonging to her little sister out of his pocket, making the tsundere completely drop her tough girl act as she demands to know why this freak is holding on to her family's stuff. Nemu the creep leaves Izumo in shock by showing off her little sister's doll, while over at the Vatican, a spy finally sings and reveals the Illuminati are going to kidnap a student in the middle of the party. Shura panics and orders all the extras to chase after Izumo before things go south. Nemu reveals he's a sort of macabre babysitter making sure the tsundere gets taken. So Izumo summons her foxes to fight, but the weirdo pulls a giant mecha out of nowhere and wipes the floor with them. When all seems lost, the pervert Renzo appears out of nowhere and summons Yamantaka, a giant black flame demon, proving he was hiding his true colors this whole time. The fire beast melts the robot, and when Nemu tries to throw 100 killer rabbits at them, Yamantaka turns them all into barbecue. Renzo knocks Nemu down and tries to shove his giant flaming staff to burn the kid's soul, but gets repelled. When Izumo decides to run and call the cavalry, Renzo himself turns his back and pierces the girl with his hot spear, leaving the tsundere completely unconscious on the ground while revealing he was the real imposter all along. Stylish helicopters descend from the sky, and the Illuminati bosses congratulate the pink-haired kid for the dirty work. A giant ball of light blinds everyone, and Lucifer, the demon king of light, descends just to rub it in Mephisto's face that the war has officially begun. Lucifer bails, taking the tsundere and the traitor, before blowing up the angels in the sky and destroying all of the Academy's defenses. Mephisto realizes playtime is over and orders Four Eyes and the rest of the useless misfit squad to form a rescue team, enlisting the help of the former suspect, Nemu. Rin is absolutely furious, grabs the headmaster by the collar, and swears he'll drag the tsundere and the pink-haired guy back even if he has to beat it out of them. Our favorite tsundere is busy having nightmares about family issues and the mother she secretly blames for all her misery. Far away, the traitor Renzo wakes up only to hear his new boss rub in his face that he's a useless weakling, and the only reason he was hired was his overpowered black flame demon. Wanting to prove his worth, the pink-haired boy volunteers to guard the prisoner Izumo. While the extras say goodbye to Noriko and take the train to the countryside in hopes of rescuing their friend, Kanako Muru goes into an existential crisis, refusing to accept that his bro stabbed him in the back. They arrive at a tourist district, but the silent Nemu decides to vanish out of nowhere, leaving the group wandering like headless chickens until Kanako Muru finds a sketchy pamphlet that basically confirms the entire temple is the Illuminati's backyard. In the villain's underground lab, Izumo wakes up confused until she comes face to face with the pink-haired simp. But the real trauma hits when a mad scientist named Michael Gedewen drags Izumo's mother in on a wheelchair, looking like she was chewed up and spit out after years of bizarre experiments. Since her mom became recyclable trash, the scientist announces that Izumo is the new guinea pig, and when she tries to act tough, the guy threatens to use her little sister, forcing the tsundere to lower her head and accept her tragic fate. In a moment of rebellion, Izumo asks Renzo why he switched sides. The boy puts on his best edgy teen villain face and says he simply hates everyone in the sect and the school. Izumo slaps him right across the face, calling him a piece of shit traitor. Renzo just smiles, hands back her sister's doll, and rubs it in her face that they're cut from the same cloth. Izumo realizes the jerk is right, since she was also hiding secrets from her own best friend. The curtain on this whole drama falls when Nemu magically summons Izumo's fox god to finally drop an info dump and tell the group about our traumatized tsundere's tragic past. We go back in time to see Izumo's childhood, proving her life was a disaster long before she met the Academy idiots. Her mother, Tamamo, was a useless priestess who spent more time chasing men than taking care of her daughters, and her job was basically taking the nine-tailed fox deep into her body to keep the demon docile. While Izumo tried to be the adult of the house, the Illuminati's squad of freaks pops out of nowhere, led by a bizarre fat guy named Michael Gedewen. A woman named Maria tries to recruit the girl like a telemarketer, promising a magical world of equality. Izumo tells them to get lost, but keeps the business card just in case. Then her mom's boyfriend decides he doesn't want to be a stepdad and dumps Tamamo. Heartbroken, she becomes more fragile than her self-esteem, and the nine-tailed fox seizes the opportunity to force its way in and possess her completely. Totally insane. The mother kills her ex and apparently takes the best way to avoid child support is to never have daughters way too literally. The fox familiars try to hold back the madwoman, and Izumo makes the brilliant decision to call the Illuminati telemarketers, asking for a rescue. Gedewen's team arrives, cages the fox mom, and, in an obvious plot twist, locks Izumo in captivity. 10 days later, Maria shows up full of guilt, revealing she shipped Izumo's little sister off for adoption before she could turn into a lab rat. They try to make a run for it, but the obese Gedewen catches them both. He makes Maria get on all fours and beg for her life, pretends to forgive her, and injects her with a lethal slime anyway, leaving Izumo with front row seats to the trauma. Gedewen announces that Izumo's mother will be squeezed until she turns into immortality juice, and when her body gives out, Izumo herself goes in the blender. To protect her adopted sister, she chokes back her tears and accepts the deal, swearing to kill everyone just like a generic revenge protagonist. After hearing this tragic backstory, the Exorcist squad rushes to save Izumo, arriving at Inari Dreamtown, a place that looks like a rundown shopping mall. Meanwhile, Izumo is dragged to the experiment room, but decides to play crazy, kicking and screaming just like you do when your internet goes down. The acting distracts the guards just enough for her to knock everyone out, escape, and summon her canine familiars to make a run for it.
Don't just stand there, you morons! Bring her back here!
At the mall entrance, Yukio tries crying to Mephisto for backup, but gets left on red. With no babysitter to help, Four Eyes takes the lead, and the group wipes the floor with the front door security. But the mall trip ends quickly. Izumo was this close to escaping when she runs into Renzo, the pink-haired traitor. The girl orders her familiars to attack, but Renzo decides to make Fox barbecue. He summons his familiars' giant black flames, blasts poor dog Mike until he disintegrates, and then shoves a fire spear deep into Uke, turning them both to dust. With her pets obliterated and in absolute shock, Izumo is handcuffed again and dragged back to the basement. Meanwhile, the exorcists bump into a freak in the hallway. Yukio puts 2 bullets in his head, but the zombie simply ignores the lead and keeps coming. Out of nowhere, an entire army of the undead spawns from the shadows, and the fat Michael Gedewen watches the whole thing through the security cameras, licking his lips. But when the obese scientist realizes the sons of Satan are in the middle of the mess, he pushes the most cliché trap button in the world, opening a trap door in the floor. The whole group plummets straight into the zombie cafeteria, landing in individual cells in pitch-black darkness, while Rin keeps whining about not wanting to hurt humans who are already rotting. The Demon King Lucifer holds a town hall meeting with his lackeys, and thanks Gedwin for keeping his rotting body functioning. He finds out the Okumura brothers are in the lab and orders them not to kill the boys, simping particularly hard for Yukio because of Toto's gossip. Out of nowhere, Lucifer's body starts gushing blood, proving he urgently needs an immortality elixir to deliver a juicy vessel for Daddy Satan to possess. In the lab, the obese scientist discovers that the compatibility between Izumo and her mother is lower than his chances of getting a date. But since he's a despicable kiss-ass, he decides to shove the experiment down their throats anyway to avoid disappointing his boss. And as a bonus, he tosses Lucifer's orders in the trash and tells the zombies to devour Rin's squad. Trapped in their cells, the Exorcists come face to face with hideous chimera zombies. The useless bald monk Kanaku Maru trembles so much he considers shoving his own gun in his gut and killing himself, accepting that he's a failed side character NPC. But miraculously, he gathers some courage, slashes the monster, and escapes with Kuro's help, only to find Yukio, who had already obliterated his problem. In another cell, Shiemi screams so loud the zombie gets spooked and drops her, and she responds by planting a gigantic tree in the middle of the cage to bury the beast. The buff Ryuji just throws a water mirror in his zombie's face. When the monster sees its own ugliness in the reflection, it falls into deep depression and gives up on life, letting Ryuji dispatch it by reciting Buddhist prayers. Rin simply blows the door off his cell because he's still full of that soft talk about not wanting to burn corpses. Pushed to the limit, he blasts his blue flames into the locks, creating a chain reaction to free the whole gang without hurting the monsters. The group finally reunites, but Gedwin's vile voice echoes through the loudspeaker, welcoming them to the slaughterhouse. The mad scientist Michael uses the lab's megaphone to host a sadistic podcast, revealing that the disgusting chimera zombies are just idiot tourists who ate spiked food at the amusement park. While the exorcists run from the mutants, the protagonist tries to play White Knight and jumps in to rescue the hot-headed Izumo. But the pink-haired traitor Renzo blocks the way, only for Izumo to deliver a moral slap to our hero's face, saying with the coldness of an iceberg that she prefers to solve her own hair-raising trauma alone. Shocked by being rejected just like you in high school, the protagonist takes a hit and falls into a deep pit while the girl turns her back and marches straight to the Illuminati slaughterhouse. Down at the bottom of the scientific pit, Izumo discovers her little sister is supposedly alive and decides to play along with the experiments, secretly planning to let the nine-tailed fox inside her so she can rip everyone's throats out. She puts on a carnival mask, ignores her own mother's warnings, and pulls the furry beast in. Meanwhile, Renzo impales the protagonist with a flaming spear, and Rin is swallowed by the flesh zombie's black hole. Back to the fox girl. Her body starts rotting and bleeding because the possession is charging the most expensive rent in hell. Lying on the floor and melting, Izumo finally realizes that pushing everyone away was the dumbest mistake of her life, admitting that she loved her mom, her sister, and even her annoying friends. She cries begging for help, which makes Michael laugh like a maniac. But the protagonist hears the tsundere's tears, gets absolutely furious, and vomits his burning blue flames to melt the entire lab down. He punches Michael in the face with the force of 1,000 rejected simps.
Here you come ruining everything! You made her cry!
The possession goes terribly wrong, and Izumo completely loses her sanity, attacking her mother like a rabid beast in heat. Seeing her daughter cosplay as an out-of-control monster, her mom gets up from the floor, does a mystical little dance, and sucks the giant fox back into her own body, ruining all of the failed scientist's research files. The old woman collapses on the floor, and Izumo cries rivers, asking why she was saved after being the most insufferable teenager on the planet. Her mom delivers a cliché speech about how she is her greatest treasure, tells her daughter to trust her friends, and dies with a smile on her face. Seeing his research go up in smoke, Michael spirals into despair, shoves the mask onto his own face, and gets possessed by a bizarre demon. He gains a giant jaw and extra arms, swallowing his own zombies to get buff. Izumo, furious and weaponless, calls out to her magic dogs, Uke and Mike. The mutts spawn out of nowhere, revealing that the pink-haired traitor spared their lives and grant their owner an overpowered boost. Izumo summons a full magical girl outfit with fox ears and starts reciting the exorcism while her pets turn into buff human guys with a bow and sword. Michael laments humanity's hypocrisy before being struck and stabbed in the face, completely obliterated by the girl's deadly little dance. When it's time to bail, the squad's meathead cries, asking their traitor friend to come back, but Renzo just shows up to collect the trash from Michael's body and says he prefers a steady paycheck from the Illuminati. Reinforcements arrive and the Order takes control of the park. At the hospital, Izumo gets a magic key from the weirdo Nemu and travels to spy on her little sister. The little girl now has a perfect family, a new name, and has absolutely no idea who Izumo is. Humiliated by being forgotten, Izumo returns the girl's dirty doll, goes back to her hospital room, and cries her eyes out on the healer's shoulder for being erased from her own sister's memory. In the end, she visits her mother's grave, swears to stop being an arrogant jerk, and goes back to the academy only to be crushed by a clingy hug from her friend. The Exorcists gather to return to Tokyo, still crying over their lost friend, until the reinforcements arrive and drop the bomb, revealing that the pink-haired boy is actually a double agent working for the Order. The squad's meathead has a nervous breakdown and screams that the Illuminati will skin the kid alive if they find out. Turns out the crazy director convinced the kid to accept the evil cult's invitation just to be a rat spy. After all, compulsive lying was his only real talent. Far away, the absolute failure, Michael wakes up on the Illuminati's flying base, drooling in front of his supreme boss, Lucifer. The blonde villain says he was going to throw the lab in the trash anyway, but he hates an insubordinate employee. Michael drops to his knees, begging for forgiveness, offering his new demonic body, but Lucifer just tells him he's still a pathetic piece of human garbage and disintegrates the scientist on the spot for breach of contract. Back in the classroom, the mood feels like a funeral. To break the ice, our protagonist puts on a cheap pink wig and starts mocking his traitor friend in the most embarrassing way possible. Right in the middle of this humiliation, the real Renzo casually walks through the door as if he didn't just betray everyone. The meathead gets up and punches him in the face, but then hugs the guy demanding the truth. When Izumo demands an explanation for the dog death theater, Renzo tries to drop the lame excuse that it was just a rebellious phase. That earns him a violent headbutt from the big guy, getting run over by Izumo's fox, a broom sweep from the bald monk, and to top it all off, the protagonist burns all his clothes off, leaving the traitor with his balls blowing in the wind before the healer slaps the idiot unconscious.
You're my guardian angel. Oh well, that didn't work.
The headmaster pops out of nowhere and teleports everyone to his fancy office to meet Lewin Light, the second most overpowered exorcist on the block. The big shot wants to know if the class trusts the naked double agent, but the protagonist prefers to freak out and accuse the director of being a manipulative sociopath. Mephisto laughs in everyone's face, admitting he loves playing with them on a sadistic chessboard to defeat Lucifer. Ignoring the boss's insanity, the gang finally confirms they trust their pink-haired friend, wrapping up the interrogation. On the way out, Renzo escapes the school torture and bumps into a disgruntled Four Eyes, eager to gossip about a secret meeting in the shadows with the leader of the Illuminati. Yukio keeps playing dumb about his encounter with Lucifer, but Renzo is already caught up on all the gossip. It turns out the leader of the Illuminati had shown up right after the fight against the Chimera zombie just to invite Four Eyes to his demonic cult. Lucifer basically offered a premium package of answers about Yukio's bizarre genetics, promising to reveal everything about that pair of eyes he's so terrified of hiding. Yukio refuses the offer to soak up the master's wisdom and aims his gun, but Lucifer walks away, swearing their paths will cross again someday. Meanwhile, Renzo admits to Ryuji that he's absolutely loving his double life as a spy, leaving his shaved-headed friend with a mix of jealousy and disgust. Later, Mephisto decides to treat the squad with tickets to a hot spring spa, figuring that traumatized teenagers need to relax in a hot bath. But since peace is a myth in this world, the spa gets invaded by 3 demonic monkeys that force everyone to be brutally honest. This leads Rin and Renzo to start fighting right in the middle of the water. Terrified that the monkeys will make him confess his darkest desires and the secret of his mutant eyes, Yukio almost draws his firearm in the middle of the bath like an absolute lunatic. Luckily, Ryuji casts a spell that scares the beasts away, but the ensuing mess destroys the water slide and leaves Shura furious that her day off was ruined. At the end of the day, Rin tries to confront his brother's depressed face, but Yukio runs away from the conversation just like he runs away from therapy, determined to figure out alone what the hell is growing inside his body. The Vatican's High Command holds an HOA-style meeting to discuss the Illuminati's mess. Mephisto reveals that the villains are trying to brew an immortality juice to revive Satan using regenerating demons. When that bleach-blonde Arthur accuses Mephisto of being a dirty traitor, the director simply rips off his clothes to show off a body covered in nasty wounds, proving he's tearing himself apart to keep the Gehenna Gate closed. With the world about to go down the drain, the Academy decides to push up the Exorcist exams, because throwing teenagers into a meat grinder is always the Vatican's best strategy. To help with the carnage, the legendary Lewin Light steps in as the new teacher, though his hippie philosophy that humans and demons should be besties creeps half the class out. Lewin abuses his position of power to use Rin and Ryuji as his personal slaves, making them clean up the pigsty he calls a room. Mesmerized by the master's genius, Ryuji begs on his knees to become his disciple. Lewin turns him down at first, saying he'd only accept if he could get his hands on Rin's thick, hot sword. Since Rin refuses, Lewin decides to test the bald kid with a cursed card game. Ryuji starts chanting the spells perfectly, but makes a slip-up and summons a giant, impure baron right in the middle of the room. Before the beast can unleash a toxic gas cloud, Lewin rips the card and erases the monster in the blink of an eye, revealing the whole thing was just a sadistic test. Impressed by the nerd, Lewin finally accepts Ryuji as his apprentice. Meanwhile, Kuro warns Rin that Yukio has completely dropped off the map, probably out doing something incredibly stupid in some dark corner. Lewin goes to interrogate Shura about immortal demons, but the redhead lies through her teeth, claiming she doesn't know any, completely omitting the giant scaly crawler she loves to summon and manipulate. Meanwhile, Yukio decides that the best approach to investigative therapy is to almost kill himself in an abandoned building. Since his freaky powers only activate when he's scared to death, he tries to drown himself in a magic water bubble but fails miserably. Elsewhere, Rin and Shiemi are sent to clean an old house infested with dirt demons and end up falling into a dark, damp hole. Rin takes advantage of the situation to ignite his blue flames and make things really hot for the blonde girl. He finally mans up and confesses his feelings for her, but Shiemi delivers the biggest friend-zone strike in human history, stating she doesn't want to hook up with him or his brother. Bizarrely enough, Rin is relieved to hear that Yukio is also on a dry spell, giving him hope to escape the friend zone in the future. Far away from there, Yukio climbs to the top of the building and simply throws himself into the void, praying his survival instincts will do the heavy lifting. He shits his pants in fear during the freefall, passes out, and wakes up in a crater surrounded by demonic blue fire.
What happened? Did I pass out?
Realizing his bizarre eyes are literal plot armor keeping him alive, Yukio goes crazy and points his own gun at his head, but before he can pull the trigger, his phone rings, completely ruining the suicidal mood. It's Mephisto calling the brothers to his office with an urgent mission. Shura has fallen off the radar, and the boys need to head to Aomori to hunt down their runaway teacher. Our favorite alcoholic exorcist, Shura, is freezing in the snows of Aomori, complaining about the cold and reminiscing about how she wanted to escape that hellhole as a kid. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, the demon pimp Mephisto forces Rin and Yukio to team up on a rescue mission to go after her. Yukio tries to pull an edgy lone wolf act, saying he can handle it by himself, but Mephisto shuts him down and exposes that Four Eyes has been doing some highly dangerous secret training. Arriving in the freezing cold, the brothers rent a room, and the innkeeper has already set everything up, assuming the two came for a romantic getaway in the snow. They share a hot bath where Rin tries to pry out his brother's secrets, but Yukio dodges the topic faster than you dodge your responsibilities, shifting the conversation to Shiemi, who doesn't want to bang either of them. To make the accidental romantic vibe even worse, the innkeeper pushes their beds together. The next day, Shura is cornered by a snow demon who reveals the real reason for their meetup. He doesn't want revenge. He wants to collect an old promise and knock her up with his kid. Since Shura has the survival instincts of a potato, she flat out refuses, tells him to screw himself, and takes the beast's attack head on, collapsing dead in the snow. The brothers find her her lying there and drag her back to bed. Upon waking up, Shura drops the bomb that her great-great-grandmother made a bizarre pact with a snake demon named Hachirataro. The old lady traded the lives of all her descendants for a magic sword, which means Shura is destined to kick the bucket before turning 30. Rin freaks out, bringing up her promise that she would live to see him become a paladin, but Shura just flexes her self-healing wounds, proof of the snake's freaky power, and tells the boys to go to sleep. Of course, the second they turn their backs, the crazy lady disappears again. We find out that Shura's childhood was an absolute horror show, raised by Hachirotaro, the snake demon who treated her like a clone of her dead great-great-grandmother. She was only saved from this bizarre daycare when Shiro showed up, beat the crap out of the snake, and took the girl, leaving the demon drooling over the promise that she would return as an adult to breed. Back in the present, her scaly sugar daddy traps Shura in the temple and uses eye hypnosis to force her body to obey, and finally give him the daughter he wants so badly. When the brothers arrive to interrupt the mating session, the demon sidelines Rin and grabs Yukio, planning to force the two exorcists to play assisted reproduction. Rin burns the snake's arm to break the hypnosis, and Shura tries to kill herself with her own sword to escape the humiliation. Then Yukio goes full sociopath mode and offers an absurd deal. He asks for the sword and the snake's immortality, promising to be the incubator for his heirs in Shura's place. To prove that he's completely off his rocker and thirsty for the power to defeat his brother, Yukio draws his gun and puts a bullet right between Rin's eyes. With Rin on the ground and Shura terrified that Four Eyes has gone full Joker, Hachirotaro takes the bait, lifting Shura's curse to pass it on to the boy. However, Rin's supposed corpse stands up, ignites his flames, and torches the demon from behind. The whole thing was just an Oscar-worthy theatrical performance to free Shura. Feeling more cucked and furious than ever, the snake transforms into a giant whining hydra. He grabs Shura while Yukio tries to avoid the hypnosis, but Rin gets caught. Out of nowhere, the pink-haired spy Renzo appears, poking the beast right in the eye. Realizing the absolute chaos going on, Shura gives up fighting, offers to sleep with the monster at the bottom of the lake for eternity, and sinks into the freezing waters with the giant snake, ready to become fish food. Sinking toward the bottom of the lake, wrapped in a giant hydra's embrace, Shura has that classic near-death flashback. She remembers when Shiro abandoned her at an orphanage and told her to stop being useless and start valuing her own life. Deciding she doesn't want to become a soggy corpse, she starts fighting back. The snake's body overheats because Rin and Yukio have set up the perfect combo. Yukio covers his brother's eyes to block the hypnosis, and Rin unleashes his blue flame bomb, roasting the Hydra's multiple heads like it's a Sunday BBQ.
Satan bomb!
The demon lets Shura go, but the beast is way too needy and tries to trap her again with its slimy tongues. Hachirotaro grabs Yukio, wanting revenge for being played by their little theater act earlier, but Shura draws her sword, cuts the bindings, frees Four Eyes, and ditches the demon once and for all, announcing that she's going to live a normal life. Rin finishes roasting the Hydra until the beast shrinks back into a pathetic, harmless little snake. Taking pity on the worm, the exorcist let it slither away. With the curse broken, Shura rocks a new haircut, a much less suicidal attitude, and gives the brothers a hug, thanking old man Shiro for leaving these idiots in the world. But since nobody can have 1 minute of peace, Renzo whispers in Yukio's ear and rubs salt in the wound, asking if he regrets missing out on the beast's immortality. The pink-haired spy confesses that he watched all of Four Eyes' secret training, sent everything to Mephisto, and warns him that if he doesn't seek help soon, the Illuminati's door is wide open to fix his weakness. With his brain frying from so much stress, Yukio passes out. He wakes up at the Order's hospital, covered in casts and broken. Shura tells him he needs 2 months of bed rest, but the only thing echoing in the boy's shattered mind are Lucifer's seductive promises, proving he's 2 steps away from becoming the story's next edgy villain. Shura complains to Mephisto that she lost her demonic powers, and now her sword is more useless than you trying to open a stubborn pickle jar. Mephisto casually drops that the Illuminati captured Hachirotaro, making Shura threaten to slap the director up if he lays a finger on Rin and Yukio. Meanwhile, Ryuji and Lewin are playing detective in the Order's secret library, sniffing out the Vatican's dirty laundry. Lewin connects the Illuminati to the infamous Blue Knight and the erased birth records of the Okumura brothers, proving there's some heavy shady business going on under the table. Shortly after, Lewin corners Renzo, revealing he stuck an invisible magic bell on the spy's scruff, basically turning the bastard into a walking tracker to find the enemy base later. Over in the failed romance subplot, Rin and Shiemi try to talk about their feelings, but they radiate so much virgin energy that Izumo and Noriko have to eavesdrop on the second-hand embarrassment. Izumo decides to stuff Shiemi with shoujo manga to see if the girl can learn a thing or two about love, but the poor thing suffers a romantic cliché overdose and passes out drooling over the pages. The next day, Shiemi finally pulls Rin aside just to turn him down for good, confessing she isn't ready to accept anyone's love right now. The depressing moment is interrupted by Amaimon, who pops out of nowhere seeking revenge against Rin. Shiemi shoves the King of Earth away with the strength of someone rejecting a street flyer, and Rin finally blocks his attack, sending Amaimon off to lick his wounds far away so he doesn't break Mephisto's good behavior orders. Hunting for more Blue Knight gossip, Lewin and Ryuji ignore the invasion and decide to travel to the Southern Cross Monastery, where Old Man Shiro raised Satan's little monsters, ready to pull skeletons out of the closet and squeeze the truth out of whoever is in front of them. Lewin and Ryuji's investigative tour arrives at the monastery, where the Inquisitor notices that the monk Tadashi is sweating more than a witness on the stand. Out of patience for small talk, Lewin revs up a giant chainsaw, ready to slice the cleric up and carve the truth out of him by force. Ryuji jumps in to stop the massacre and gets a scratch for his troubles, but Tadashi finally spills his guts that he used to work in Section 13, cooking up an immortality elixir. Before he can drop any more juicy details, the poor guy is obliterated by a time demon thanks to a lethal contract planted on his neck, turning into fertilizer right in front of the duo and proving Lewin's paranoid theories right. Tired of playing games, Lewin barges into Mephisto's office and demands answers. Sick of being painted as the soap opera villain, the director leans into his arrogance, tosses the lab's address right into their laps, and tells them to go see the horrors with their own eyes. While Yukio overhears funeral gossip blaming the Inquisitor for Tadashi's death, Shiemi begs her mother on her knees to let her take the Exorcist exam, finally earning the right to hear her family's secret history. Far from there, Lewin and Ryuji solve a riddle and break into the asylum, the destroyed former orphanage that Mephisto conveniently hid inside a pocket dimension. They head down to Section 13's macabre basement and uncover records of inhumane experiments designed to create buffed-up clones of the 8 Demon Kings. When they spot the incubation pods, a horde of defective clones shatters the glass, eager to take a bite out of their fresh meat.
Come set! Armchair and side!
But Mephisto yanks the duo back to safety in the blink of an eye. Forced to explain himself, Mephisto reveals that he created this laboratory abomination in the past solely to stop Lucifer from committing suicide and blowing up the entire universe along with him out of pure spite. The scientists tried to clone a beefed-up body for Lucifer to handle the strain, but they ended up creating a vessel so perfect that Satan himself took the wheel and possessed the body, triggering the tragedy of the Blue Knight. Suspecting that a massive traitor leaked the immortality research to the Illuminati, the two walk out of the room completely stunned, only to bump straight into Paladin Arthur, as if the day wasn't already bizarre enough. Lewin and Ryuji drop the Section 13 bombshell right in Arthur's lap, but the empty-headed Paladin has never even heard of the atrocities committed there. They continue their little tour and visit the Temple of Azazel, one of the Demon Kings who decided to play the good guy and helped found the Order. The problem is that the big guy is sealed inside a crystal tornado looking like a forgotten collectible on a shelf, unable to make a peep while Lewin calls the shiny boulder Grandpa. At school, the Exorcist squad decides to throw a massive blowout for all their late birthdays combined with Christmas, but the party mood crumbles when Yukio pries a confession out of Shiemi that she's given up on becoming an exorcist for good. The group panics, thinking the girl caught a terminal illness and is doing a farewell charity tour, but she swears she'll just keep attending regular classes like it's no big deal. While the kids head out to buy cake and fairy lights, Ryuji fries his brain on the leaked files and discovers that the late father Shiro was literally a human clone of Azazel. The kid also notices that the page for some guy named Goro is missing from the records, confirming that this was the perfect meat suit Satan hijacked back in the day. The party is set, but Shiemi's useless familiar decides to roll over in its sleep, dragging the Christmas tree down over everything, setting the hall on fire and turning the cake into a lump of coal. Instead of crying over the disaster, the idiots laugh at their own misery and enjoy the wreckage of the bash, even celebrating the random news that Mamushi has a bun in the oven. At the end of the party, Shiemi hands out 4-leaf clovers as consolation prizes. Rin immediately asks if she's packing it in and kicking the bucket, but the girl cuts the the drama, saying she's just going to focus on her mom's shop. Later, Shura breaks into the twins' room dressed as a scantily clad Mistress Claus to deliver the worst present possible, their traumatic past. She spills the beans about Yuri Agen, their biological mother, who carried the devil's spawns. While Yukio foams at the mouth, wanting to dig deeper into their matriarch's rap sheet, Rin tries to ignore the whole thing, realizing that their family tree is more rotten than milk left out in the sun. The gang heads to Kyoto to stuff their faces at Juzo and Mamushi's wedding. Our useless protagonist notices that his four-eyed brother is smiling like everything's fine, even after freaking out the night before. Yukio has turned into a creepy stalker, spending the night spying on Ryuji and Lewin in the bushes, but only manages to spook the big guy with his needy psychopath glare. Meanwhile, the useless Renzo whines because he wants to go back to the Illuminati terrorists, but Lewin's got a tight leash around his neck. He tries playing with his black flames, takes a humiliating beating from the groom, and even has to listen to Kanaka Maru rub it in his face that he's still a jealous loser. On New Year's Eve, Rin and Shiemi share that cliche will they won't they couple moment, whining about how Rin was hated during the summer and how everyone keeps little secrets just like you. On the wedding day, the ceremony goes off with rings, a kiss, and plenty of booze. But Lewin has no time for little parties and heads straight to the lab to punch Dr. Drac in the face, accusing the nerd of treason before nearly choking the poor guy out and finding a giant scar on his neck. Back at the wedding chaos, Ryuji steps out to take a call, and the unhinged Yukio finally loses it. He corners the kid and points a gun right between his eyes, demanding to know the secrets of his own birth. Soon after, he lowers the revolver, apologizes, and walks away smiling like he didn't just commit attempted murder. Renzo, who loves watching drama unfold from the shadows, tries to recruit Four Eyes to the dark side, but the mess is cut short by a call from Shura warning them that the world is infested with demons. A giant cyclops spawns out of nowhere to terrorize the city, and the Order crew rushes in to clean up the mess. Shura tries to use her sword on the beast, but her blade is limper than the protagonist on test day. Luckily, Lewin shows up and forces an ice spirit into her weapon, bringing back the stiffness she needs to eagerly slice the monster to pieces.
Emptiness!
Lewin bumps into the weirdo Yukio, asks why he was pulling guns on his classmates, and is shortly after handcuffed for beating up the doctor. But before being dragged away, the blonde slips a password to Four Eyes. Yukio plugs the password into a magic flash drive and discovers that his beloved daddy was just a lab clone made for the Demon Kings. Throwing a temper tantrum, he trashes the computer and goes to take out his anger by killing off demon extras, realizing that the Order is just as garbage as the Illuminati. Tired of being a lonely loser, Yukio runs to Shiemi's shop to go cry on her shoulder. The girl tries to be a good Samaritan and lets him in, getting a needy hug in return. But when she makes the fatal mistake of mentioning Rin's name, Four Eyes completely loses his mind, yells at the poor girl, leaves her in tears, and flees into the street. Admitting he's a walking piece of trash, he decides to solve his problems by putting a bullet in his own head. But before his brain can decorate the asphalt, blue flames erupt and devour the bullet, covering his left eye while Satan's voice whispers for him not to kill himself. Yukio realizes the devil is living in his eye socket, while Renzo gets a front row seat to this entire humiliation. Lewin is locked up in magic handcuffs, so he'll stop punching people, while the Prime Minister and director Mephisto hold a press conference revealing the existence of demons to the whole world, because you can never have enough chaos. Right in the middle of the presser, Yukio decides it's the perfect time to make a scene. He corners Mephisto, quits the Order, and demands to know why his eye is on fire with blue flames. Mephisto laughs in Four Eyes' face like the clown he is, and Yukio, sticking to his new hobby of threatening people, points his gun at his head. But before he can pull the trigger, a mysterious shooter takes out the director. Shura knows the bullet's physics don't line up with the kid's position, but the Order couldn't care less about math and throws Yukio in a cage on suspicion of being the family's new demonic freak. With a hole in his brain, Mephisto can no longer keep the magic barrier up. He drops the protection, and the Gehenna Gate throws its doors wide open to the entire world, letting a bloodthirsty horde of demons invade Earth to wreak havoc on the streets. When Rin finds out his brother is going to become a lab rat and possibly face execution, he rounds up the Exorcist daycare for a rescue mission. They get some unwanted help from Amai Mon, proving that Mephisto still commands his pawns even while sprawled out on the floor. The break-in is a festival of cheap distractions and smashed walls. In the dark cell, Satan tries to seduce Yukio with promises of escape, but Four Eyes refuses to bow down. Rin finally breaches the hole, and the two flee together, even though Yukio still has that look of someone who's going to stab everyone in the back next episode. While the protagonist escapes the prison carrying his useless brother, Yukio decides this is the perfect time to throw a teenage temper tantrum. He stops, pouts, and questions why Rin came to save him, proving he has the emotional depth of a brick wall. The Illuminati chopper appears in the sky, and Yukio, remembering he's a power-starved loser, walks toward the villains. He drops the bombshell that the Order and the Illuminati are the exact same crap, and that Daddy Shiro was nothing more than an artificial lab-grown human using them both as tools. Rin refuses to believe their father was a fraud and swears to interrogate Mephisto, that top hat-wearing furry. Yukio says he doesn't give a damn, points a gun at his own brother's face, and starts pumping Rin full of lead, screaming that he doesn't need saving while unleashing all of his spoiled brat frustrations. The extras just stand around watching in shock, completely useless, while Amaimon blocks Shiemi. Realizing that Yukio really wants to send him to hell, Rin loses his patience, unleashes his flames, and draws his massive, throbbing sword, Kudakata. But Yukio's eye gets possessed, and he snaps his brother's hard blade in half with the greatest of ease. Right at that moment, Satan himself decides to enter the voice chat to tell the brothers they shouldn't fight. The Dark Lord gets absolutely thrilled by the broken sword, announcing that Rin can now swallow the full flame. Yukio gets in the helicopter and bails, while Amaimon mocks Rin to his face. The protagonist then spontaneously combusts, screaming in agony as the blue flames fry his flesh until he becomes a lump of human charcoal. The demonic heart that was trapped in the sword slides smoothly back into his body, healing the burned flesh.
His demon heart?
Rin wakes up looking like a K-pop idol with light blue hair and a different voice, leaving Shiemi terrified as she notices that his flames aren't cozy anymore, but hot enough to melt anyone who gets close. The protagonist and the eccentric Mephisto decide to take a sightseeing trip through time, going back 40 years into the past to snoop into the life of Rin's mother. Mephisto warns the protagonist that he needs to stay hidden like a rat and not touch anything so he doesn't break the script. They arrive at a time when Yuri was just a filthy, dirt-poor orphan, living on the charity of some random old folks. While her guardians try to warn her about cruel demons, Yuri proves she already had the family's suicidal instinct and says she really wants to be besties with a floating blue fireball. Fast forward a few days, and we see Yuri playing by herself in a junkyard when her cup explodes in her face. Obviously, it was that same fireball. Mephisto explains that back then, Satan was literally a homeless ghost with no body. But the fun stops when a colossal fire turns Yuri's home and her guardians into barbecue, leaving the girl out on the streets. Rin tries to play the savior hero, but Mephisto holds his leash tight. The girl breaks into a rundown shed in the snow, steals some food, and passes out. The owner of the shack, a young Shiro Fujimoto, arrives pissed off and ready to kick the intruder out. Yuri doesn't care about his bad mood and clings to the boy's body to leech some body heat, calling him a snowman due to his total lack of affection. Suddenly, an old man with a demon dog shows up to drag Shiro back to the asylum he escaped from. Realizing that Yuri can see the creature, the old man notes she's traumatized enough to join the club and drags her along too. They arrive at the asylum, split the two up, and Yuri discovers the place is an orphan factory trained to fight demons. Instead of running for the hills, she gets super pumped to become an exorcist, proving that ignoring red flags is a genetic gift. In the director's office, Shiro corners Mephisto and demands a promotion so he can stop being treated like a lab rat in Section 13, a place packed with boring clones. He wants to become a paladin, swearing that this will finally grant him his freedom. Mephisto laughs until he's out of breath at the kid's sheer naivety, telling him he's going to be the Order's lapdog forever, but he accepts the deal anyway. If Shiro loses to a single demon, he'll have to pay up with a very special, highly submissive little favor for the director. Flashing back 4 years, Mephisto drops the biggest lore bomb yet. The cute little asylum was actually just a front to hide a clandestine lab cloning perfect bodies for the Demon Kings, and Daddy Shiro was literally grown in a test tube using Azazel's DNA. Rin freaks out, but he's dragged along to see the almighty Lucifer rotting on a stretcher. The King of Light rejects the scientist's failed immortality juice and warns them that he won't stop until he gets a new body that can actually handle his power. Rin makes eye contact with the demon and freezes up like a total coward. After discovering that the clones were subjected to torture sessions until they lost their humanity, Rin is taken to see his mother's very first mission. Yuri's squad of red shirts tries to burn the roots of a giant tree demon using literal campfire torches. Yuri waves happily at Shiro, who ignores her with the coldness of a psychopath. While the idiots are getting their butts kicked by the tree, Shiro jumps onto the monster, shoves a grenade in it, and blows up the entire forest. The explosion turns harmless demons into burnt firewood. Yuri is horrified, whining that exorcists should be friends with the nice monsters. Shiro looks at her with pure disgust, tells her to drop dead, and walks away, proving that diplomacy was never the family's strong suit. And of course, the stalker blue fireball was hiding in the bushes, watching the whole humiliation unfold. Shiro watches his guardian kick the bucket and decides to loot the corpse, taking his glasses as a souvenir, before finally being released from the bizarre experiments of Section 13. The Vatican decides to play the benevolent card and promotes Shiro to an official exorcist alongside Yuri, who's still stuck at the bottom of the ranks. While Shiro enjoys being the center of attention, Yuri swears he's just a lonely emo boy in desperate need of some affection. In a flashback to Mexico, the exorcists are getting pulverized by some random boulder, but Yuri realizes the golem just needed a hug. She calms the creature down without using violence, leaving everyone looking utterly dumbfounded. A butthurt Shiro calls it beginner's luck, and even humiliates a rookie named Rick just to stroke his own ego. Yuri doesn't take crap from arrogant dudes and slaps Shiro right in the face, calling him a coward. The guy raises his hand to return the slap, but a jet of blue flames bursts out to defend the girl, revealing itself to be her fiery imaginary friend. After almost committing domestic violence, Shiro goes to the demon nursery to apologize and dumps all his lab rat trauma onto her. Yuri, with her maternal instincts going off the charts, decides to swallow his sadness with a kiss and confesses her love. She's summarily rejected because Shiro doesn't want to catch a case for dating a minor. The next day, the cringe hits hard and Yuri apologizes for being so bold. They make up, agree to just be friends, and Yuri forces the grown-ass man to shake hands with the guy he humiliated earlier. While they play the just friends game, Satan spends 9 whole years trying to penetrate the body of a guinea pig named Goro, slowly pumping him with his demonic fluids until the host stretches his resistance and accepts full possession. Time passes, and the background cast decides to get married. During the party, the bouquet flies towards Shiro, who catches it and hands it to Yuri. She turns beet red and starts having an existential crisis about becoming an adult. 9 years fly out the window, and the only thing that hasn't changed is the incompetence of the walking skeleton known as Lucifer in securing a new body. When Section 13 threatens to shut down, a Maimon miraculously manages to possess a clone, giving them hope that Lucifer won't die a vessel virgin. The alarms blare when Goro finally wakes up blazing and starts roasting the scientists. Shiro recognizes his old buddy, but Goro only has eyes for Yuri, who realizes the psychopathic killer is actually her childhood fireball. After they tranquilize the lunatic, Goro escapes again just to play a deadly game of hide and seek until Yuri busts out her kindergarten teacher voice and tames the beast. Seeing that the girl has a gift for breaking in freaks of nature, Mephisto puts Yuri in charge of educating the creature. Over the course of a year, Yuri teaches the monster how to read, but he has the emotional maturity of an average Twitter user and throws tantrums when he doesn't get enough attention. He demands harder books, and when Yuri tries to humanize him, he runs off, takes a guard hostage, and demands an entire library. Yuri tries using his cute nickname to calm him down, but the monster has read too many books, realizes he's a superior being, and sets the hostage on fire while letting out a Joker-style cackle, revealing he's figured out he is Satan himself.
A demon god. From now on, you may call me Lord Satan.
Thinking he was going to get a gold star for the murder, Satan gets the biggest scolding of his life when Yuri cries and tells him that killing people for fun is bad. The Lord of Hell gets offended, burns the whole room down, and runs away, sending the old geezers in Section 13 into an absolute panic. 6 months pass with no sign of the horned bastard, making the exorcists assume the body rotted away, and he crawled back to whatever hole he came from. But Yuri keeps playing the lonely widow. Shiro even tries to dump a feral child named Shura into her lap, but Yuri rejects motherhood because she's too busy waiting for her toxic ex to come back. 2 years later, Lucifer is already looking like a radioactive zombie when Satan falls out of the sky with an army of demons, whining for meds because his meat suit is aching. After chugging an elixir and feeling brand new, Satan demands to see Yuri and forms the most destructive alliance of the millennium with Lucifer. They take over the lab, hold everyone hostage, and Satan laughs in Mephisto's face when the fancy boy tries to negotiate. The Order declares war, but spends a whole month just dragging its feet, hoping Satan's body will rot on its own so they can sweep it under the rug. Yuri, tired of everyone's incompetence, drags Shiro along to help her infiltrate and walks straight into the monster's lair by herself. She faces the demon god and makes the most insane proposal possible. She promises to be his woman and stay by his side until his body fully decays, as long as he lets the hostages go. Satan accidentally throws some demons at her in surprise, but ends up accepting the deal, hugging the girl and begging to never be left alone again, officially sealing everyone's tragic fate. Being an absolute simp for Yuri, Satan cancels the apocalypse, frees the hostages, and tells Lucifer he found something way tastier than a new body. Before running off to play house, Yuri hugs her friend Jenny, who cries her eyes out over the asylum's clones, and decides it's a brilliant idea to turn whistleblower and expose everything. Too bad a guard overhears the conversation and sends Jenny to the afterlife without Yuri even noticing. The dark couple tries to bail, but the Order's nerds, led by Nikolai, want to milk Satan to keep sucking up his elixir. They go trigger happy. The blue flames tank everything, but Satan's body has an expiration date and shorts out at the worst possible moment. Shiro seizes the opening and steals Yuri away. Mephisto spills the beans to the Vatican, revealing that Yuri is knocked up with the Lord of Hell's spawn, protected by an overpowered uterine shield called the Cradle Barrier. Shiro warns her that the Order is going to pin all the blame on her, but the crazy lady only cares about the baby. Knowing the kid is going to be born spitting fire, Shiro steals the Kurikata sword. Only the ultrasound failed. There are actually two of them, and Yuri is pushed to the brink of death. After a lot of pushing, she pops out Fetus M, who was already born on fire. The womb shield shuts down, Shiro raises the sword, but the newborn decides it's his time to shine and melts the red shirts to death, sending the entire Order into a panic over a baby in diapers. Watching his own disastrous birth, Rin starts crying, exactly like you do when you check your bank statement, deeply regretting being born. His demon side tries to hack his mind, but Mephisto is officially out of patience for the teen angst, smacks the kid in his demonic heart, and ships him back to the present to cool his head. Meanwhile, Four Eyes Yukio and backstabber Renzo arrive at the Illuminati treehouse. Lucifer thanks the boy for bringing Daddy Satan home, promising world peace. But Yukio plays the edgy teen card, saying he doesn't give a crap about their villain plans and only wants to know why his left eye turned into a cursed flashlight. With the Gehenna Gate vomiting demons all over the globe, the Exorcists are finally forced to clock in and do some work. Konoku Maru drags Kurikata's shattered pieces to Tatsuma for repairs. Izumo is stuck babysitting Shiemi, who wakes up and finally admits she's dying to get her hands on Rin's demonic sword, but cries thinking it's too late. Izumo freaks out wanting to know the blonde's true identity right as some Vatican suits show up and kidnap the girl. Shiemi ends up in Amahara, a magical garden she swore was just a bedtime story. Some guy named Jeremiah treats her like a princess, while Shiemi realizes she has amnesia and her mom is too busy to pay attention to her. Throwing a pity party for herself, she goes to the bathroom to cry but finds Rin passed out on the floor with a monumentally stupid look on his face. Just looking at his goofy mug makes her laugh. Rin mumbles his brother's name in his sleep, and Shiemi whispers that they are the sons of her life before vanishing into thin air. The useless protagonist wakes up alone, grabs his key, and jumps back into the time machine. He tells Mephisto he's done whining, but his timing is garbage. Right as Yuri pushes to deliver the second child, a completely pissed off Satan begins the Blue Night Massacre, slaughtering absolutely everyone in his path. The Blue Night kicks off with Satan's body crumbling like dry chalk, but he's way too whipped for Yuri to accept death. Lucifer tries to be a good son and blows up his dad's body to end his suffering. The Lord of Darkness, being completely delusional, thinks Yuri was the one who attacked him and throws a massive fit. Desperate to shove his giant spirit into a tight little body, Satan tries forcefully possessing random humans, but they all instantly burst into flames because they can't handle the pressure. He even causes a scene in Kyoto where Takezo gets turned into Swiss cheese to protect the cowardly Renzo. Satan even tries to mount Shimihaza, but she rejects his advances and decides to fight back. Meanwhile, Yuri finishes the job and ejects Fetus H, who is born mute and not breathing. The midwife tries to rush to the ICU, but some paranoid exorcists try to snatch the baby to check if he has blue eyes. Before they can lay a finger on the kid, baby M shocks everyone and turns the red shirts into barbecue. Ultimately, the human baby is just born with a spiritual wound in his left eye. Arthur Auguste Angel tries to to go toe-to-toe with newborn M, but his legendary sword and his own arm are turned to ashes by a literal baby. Seeing the paladin get humiliated by a toddler, Mephisto pulls Kudakata out of his hat. Shiro grabs the blade and plunges it straight into the kid's demon heart. He swore the brat was gonna kick the bucket, but the heart is magically sucked into the sword, sealing his infernal power once and for all. But just when everyone thinks they can take a breather, Satan finally finds a vessel that can handle his payload. He takes over Arthur's body and corners Yuri, throwing a toxic boyfriend tantrum because she had the audacity to abandon him. She drops the bomb that she just birthed 2 of his kids, but the great demon god is such a simp that he doesn't give a damn about the babies and says he just wants to consume her presence. However, Arthur's body can't handle the horned bastard's pressure and starts disintegrating. Dayton then decides he wants to go inside Shiro, confessing that he had already tried to possess the caretaker Oku before, which caused that tragic fire, all because he has a sick, twisted jealousy over Shiro being Yuri's true crush. But before the devil can get comfortable and merge their souls, Shiro casually slits his own throat with a razor, proving he'd rather bleed to death than share a body with a demonic incel. Satan gets colossally dumped by Yuri, and right before he decides to slice her up for the rejection, Shemihaza pops out of nowhere. She uses her divine aura to accelerate Shiro's cells and magically closes the wound. The glowing lady then decides that the best way to prevent another catastrophe is to assassinate Yuri. In response, Shiro takes Yuri hostage himself, bolts, and drags her and the kids to a filthy cabin in the middle of a freezing blizzard. While trying not to become popsicles, Yuri reveals she gave the babies the super creative names of Rin because he was born exploding in blue fire, and Yukio because he looks like a snowman. She apologizes for ruining Shiro's life, but he admits he always wanted to play house with her. Satisfied to finally hear that, Yuri collapses and dies in his arms, leaving the guy bawling his eyes out like a baby.
But why? Why?
The kid's wailing attracts a damn Yeti, who beats Shiro until he's left bleeding in the snow, totally ready to give up on this miserable existence, exactly like you when your alarm goes off on a Monday morning. While Shiro is lying in the snow cosplaying as a corpse, the Yeti prepares to swallow the demon babies like they're McDonald's nuggets. But the memory of Yuri makes the supreme simp stand up, draw his pistols, and pump the monster full of lead. He decides he's going to raise the devil's spawn himself, because they also have the right to breathe and cause chaos. Meanwhile, back in Section 13, Lucifer wakes up with the worst case of PMS in history, destroying everything in his path using the lame excuse of creating a fair world. A guy named Richard tries to play the hero by saving the lab's test subjects, but makes the absolute worst decision of his pathetic existence by facing the King of Light's wrath. He gets turned into cosmic dust just to save one useless clone. Lucifer's power starts disintegrating everything around him, forcing Mephisto to use his magic clock to lock his brother's tantrum in frozen time. Right after, Shemihaza shows up to finish the job. The vengeful angel uses her bright divine aura to exorcise the lunatic, and even as Lucifer tries to escape and destroys her leg in the process, the lady refuses to back down. She gives him a life coach lecture about how death is part of the cycle and blasts his body into space, finally putting an end to the Blue Knight disaster. Amidst the rubble, Shura walks out in one piece. Igor loses his family to Satan's possession, and Toto casually decides to murder his entire family, sparing only his daughter so she can be free, earning him the Father of the Year award. Shemihaza resigns out of guilt, and Jeremiah decides to adopt the only clone that didn't turn to ash. Down in the hellscape of Gehenna, Satan comes back seething with rage, looks at an image of Yuri trying to apologize, realizes he's a rejected cuck, and simply deletes her from his mind forever, like he's blocking his ex on WhatsApp. Shiro returns from his traumatic camping trip, tells Mephisto he turned Yuri into ashes, and tries to bail from the order, taking the 2 little bundles of apocalypse with him to live a free life. But the Top Hat demon pulls out their invisible contract, reminding Shiro he promised a favor if he lost to a monster. Since he didn't have the guts to put a bullet in Satan's kid, Mephisto declares it a loss and forces the guy to become the new paladin. This traps him into raising the kids so they can be used as biological weapons against their own father in the future. With no way out, Shiro accepts the worst paying job in the world. Back in Gehenna's backyard, Satan gathers the Demon Kings to throw a pathetic pity party about losing his body and having nowhere to crash. Mephisto, being the shameless manipulator he is, tells Daddy to wait for him to raise the baby to become the perfect hollow shell. Lucifer, on the other hand, promises to use macabre science to build a brand new, indestructible body. Finding both proposals delicious, the Supreme Horn Lord sits on his throne to wait and see which of his sons delivers the goods first. At the Vatican, bureaucracy runs wild as Shiro gets the title of Paladin. But right after the after-party, Jeremiah decides to slaughter the guards of the Grigori to steal Lucifer's remains and hand them over to Dr. Drac, who swears by his beloved king that he'll build an indestructible puppet in a secret lab. Meanwhile, Shiro and Mephisto take a trip to Kyoto to dump the bomb in Tatsuma's lap, asking him to hide the Kudakata sword with Rin's beating demon heart because nobody wants to hold that unpinned grenade. Shiro decides to baptize the brats with the last name Okumura, tries to raise them alone, and quickly figures out that changing radioactive diapers is worse than fighting on the front lines. Begging his surviving bros for help, Shiro magically undergoes a personality change, becomes a neat freak priest, and begins his new life as a full-time babysitter for demonic freeloaders. But as he watches his brats grow up, he spends his days listening to Satan's deep voice whispering in his ear, promising that one day he'd pay an intimate visit to possess everything.
Soon. Get out of my head, you...
Relying on the delusional idea that the devil can't enter a strong heart, Shiro simply ignores the tenet in his own head and adopts toxic positivity. However, as any parent finds out the hard way, arguing with an angsty teenager who is exactly like you will completely drain your sanity. During a pathetic argument with Rin, Shiro's heart wavers for a millisecond, allowing Satan to finally penetrate the old man's body. The Lord of Darkness tries to drag Rin straight to the hellhole of Gehenna for a family vacation, but Shiro regains control and decides the best way to cancel the trip is by taking his own life before the devil can lay a finger on the boy. The documentary of the past finally ends, leaving our useless protagonist completely mind-blown as he realizes the mountain of corpses that had to be piled up just for him to be born. Mephisto takes advantage of the vulnerable moment to humiliate the kid, asking if he still thinks his life is just disposable trash, and Rin is left with a blank stare, having no idea what to spit back. Before being ejected back into reality, Rin takes the concealment key and goes for one last stroll through the time tunnel just to have a quick chat with Shiro. Looking at the old man's face, he finally processes that the priest loved those two boys more than anything. Bawling his eyes out like a baby, Rin thanks his dad, calls himself an ungrateful idiot for downplaying his own entire existence, and decides he's had enough therapy for one day. With his sanity partially restored and the key in hand, he returns to the present, fully prepared to deal with Yukio's ugly mug.